Simultaneous Transmigration, unstoppable from the anime multiverse. Welcome back, brave explorers of impossible worlds. We are excited to have you here to continue this odyssey together. Before we continue, everything you'll hear is pure fiction, so please don't try to replicate combat techniques at home. This wonderful story and all its rights belong to its brilliant original author. We are only the messengers of entertainment. Want another dose of adventure? Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single chapter, and if you can't wait, our Patreon has exclusive surprises you'll love. Chapter 51 Study materials were discovered by adoptive mother. Aqua, do you see that? That's the line page of Murin Seiya and Sharon Umeral. Aren't you envious? I only just got to my first day in the performing arts department, and I've already made so many friends. With your personality, Aqua, you're probably still a loner, right? How about you just ask me right now, and I'll give you the line pages of Sharon Umeral and Sumihashi? Sharon Umeral, that super popular actress, and Sumihashi is also a cute girl, and a G-cup photo model with a unique personality. On the way home, a cheerful Ruby Hoshino kept chattering to Aqua, bragging about her impressive connections on her phone. Both Murin Seiya and Sharon Umeral are currently popular A-list actors, with countless people wanting their social media accounts, but not everyone has that luxury. Sumihashi, in particular, noticed that after adding Seiya's line page, the busty girl sitting next to her had been grinning at her phone all day. Aqua hadn't initially paid much attention to Ruby's claim that her classmates were Seiya and Sharon Umeral. However, when she heard the word connections, she suddenly paused and thought. Can you send me Murin Seiya's line number? Ruby was visibly taken aback by Aqua's words. She had just introduced Sharon Umeral and Suzumi Minami, but her brother, seemingly unmoved by the beauty and bust of a girl, had instead requested Seiya's line number. Could it be that her brother was actually? Of course, Aqua's sudden desire for Seiya's line number wasn't because of Nantoon, as Ruby had assumed. It was because Seiya, a child star with years of experience in the entertainment industry and his current popularity, must have considerable connections. He hacked into Hoshino AI's previous personal phone and obtained a list of names. After years of investigation, Aqua discovered that AI's murderer was on that list. However, those on the list had, over the years, become prominent figures in the entertainment industry. As a mere high school student, approaching these people and investigating their identities would undoubtedly be an impossible task. But if it were Seiya, the situation would be different. With Seiya's current status as a super popular actor, his chances of contact would be even greater. Initially, Aqua hadn't wanted to drag Seiya into this situation, but now, to achieve his revenge, he felt compelled to seek Seiya's help. Seiya, you must be home on time before 10 o'clock. And you're not allowed to go anywhere inappropriate. If you really want to date a girlfriend, you must let us help you find out first. Around 8 p.m., Seiya, under the repeated warnings of Yuko and Ako, left Winrin's residence. Upon learning that Seiya had a date that night, the two questioned him for nearly an hour. Finally, upon learning that the person he was meeting was a man, they breathed a sigh of relief. Their concerns were not unreasonable. After all, Seiya, despite having a good relationship with others, had never made any real friends. Or rather, so-called friends are mostly just passing conversations, rarely truly sincere ones. Arikana was one of them before, but as with his time, there are almost no plans to meet up. Young, handsome, wealthy, and a super popular actor, Yuko and Ako are worried that Seiya will be deceived by some seductive vixen who suddenly appears out of nowhere. Therefore, they have always been very vigilant about Seiya's personal life, trying to prevent him from going astray. That kid Seiya just reported to Yangdong High School today, and he's already made a new friend? Could he be someone with bad reputation? Ako expressed her concerns uneasily. You have to know that the performing arts department at Yangdong High School is completely different from regular departments. Although they are all high school students, students in the performing arts department are much more mature than regular students because they have already participated in various professional activities. And because they are exposed to society earlier, they are likely to be exposed to some of the industry's bad habits. Even if the students don't understand, the agencies behind them will probably provide them with advice. Seiya is a hugely popular actor, while his classmate, also in the entertainment department, is a relatively unknown newcomer. If they could spark a little scandal at this point, wouldn't their popularity skyrocket? Don't assume no one would do such shameless things. Ako, once a popular idol, knows all too well. People will do anything more mad than this just to stay famous. They've protected Seiya well over the years, and even as a child star, Seiya is well aware of these things. But Seiya is still a young man full of passion. If a beautiful woman throws herself at him, it's not impossible for him to lose control. After confirming that Seiya had indeed left, Akko and Yuko exchanged a glance, then turned in unison to Seiya's room and sneaked in, one behind the other. Seiya's room was sparsely furnished, consisting of a bed, a computer, movie posters on the walls, and a few anime figures. Ever since entering junior high, Seiya had strictly forbidden Yuko and Akko from entering his room. Unbeknownst to him, Yuko and Akko had both kept spare keys and were even more frequent visitors to his room than he was. As soon as they entered, Yuko expertly reached down and found a well-hidden cardboard box beneath Seiya's bed. Inside was a large, white, and richly presented collection of manga, games, and DVDs. My sister and I's summer vacation, trash. What good are these Lolita books? As Yuko pulled out the box Seiya had hidden under the bed, the first thing she saw was a popular manga Seiya had recently reviewed. Yuko only glanced at the contents, cursed them, and continued rummaging through the box. The deeper meaning of my stepmother, the older one is the king? This game and manga are both incredibly profound. I think I'll keep them. While Yuko was rummaging through the boxes, Akko wheeled over to Seiya's computer and deftly turned it on. Seeing the wallpaper of their family of 3 on the desktop, Akko smiled brightly. Then, with a deft tap of her fingers, she quickly found Seiya's well-hidden study materials on his hard drive. Chapter 52 Revenge of the Son of the World. Yuko, have you found anything? Akko asked her sister, flicking her mouse through Seiya's latest study materials. No, aside from a cult manga about Sister Khan, Seiya hasn't added anything new to his collection lately. And you, sister, have you found anything useful? Yuko asked, turning to her sister as she destroyed all the Sister Khan-related material she had found. Seiya has been adding a lot of study materials lately. Judging by the file opening history and the number of tissues in the trash, he's probably still in sage mode. But it seems Seiya changed his line password again. I've tried several times, but nothing works. Yuko, do you have any ideas? Hearing her sister's words, Yuko was visibly stunned. No way, another password change? Did some clue she left last time get discovered? It's easy to get the password out of Seiya. How about we call in a professional? Then we can just lie and say our computer is infected. Seiya, leaving home for his appointment, clearly had no idea that his 2 foster sisters were already planning to hire professionals to hack his computer. Arriving at a park in his tracksuit, he saw Hoshino Aqua, who had been waiting there for a long time. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. 2 troublesome people at home have taken quite a while. Aqua-sen, if I'm not mistaken, you are indeed the survivor from back then, aren't you? Seiya was here because Aqua had invited him. After getting Seiya's line number from his sister Ruby, Aqua sent him a simple message. If you want to know the truth about that day, meet me at Yangdong Park before 8:30. I'll tell you everything you want to know. Seiya hadn't really seen much of the storyline in the world of My Child, only 1 or 2 episodes. Because he was stabbed at the very beginning, Seiya had given up on it. But even with that little, Seiya knew that Hoshino Aqua and Hoshino Ruby were the children of this world's planes. Hoshino Ai's death was a tragic one, but unfortunately, he was just a child at the time and hadn't yet shared a power, so he couldn't prevent it. Hoshino Ai's death was no simple matter, and Seiya was well aware of that. He had secretly investigated over the years, but to no avail. Hoshino Ai has protected her secret so well that even the few insiders, such as Ichigo Sato at Berry Pro and Kyoko Sato, Aqua's current guardian, treat her like family and remain extremely tight-lipped. The paralysis of his adopted brother and Aqua was ultimately an unprovoked disaster, but that doesn't mean Seiya is willing to let the mastermind go. So when Aqua approached him and said she wanted to tell him the truth, Seiya responded immediately. It wasn't about exploitation or not, it was simply a temporary partnership because they shared a common enemy. My name is Hoshino Aqua. My mother is Hoshino Ai, the popular idol who died in an attack over 10 years ago. Don't tell me what I already know. I didn't come out here late at night to listen to your insignificant information. Do you think I haven't investigated Hoshino Ai all these years? Just tell me who was behind that fan's murder. Before Aqua could finish her words, Seiya, looking impatient, interrupted her. Aqua then stopped talking and pulled a slip of paper with several names written on it from his pocket and handed it to Seiya. Back then, AI and the place where we lived were quite secretive. Even Ruby and I advertised that we were Kyoko's children. And that Fan was able to accurately find our accommodation and confirm that we were AI's children. There's only one possibility: someone leaked the information. And the person who leaked the information knew AI quite well, and it's very likely that he was our father. I found this list for you from AI's personal phone. I suspect the real mastermind might be among these people. Seiya was obviously stunned when he heard what Aqua said. He hadn't expected that the children of the plains in this world would play such a big game. Are they planning to kill their father? And when he watched this show before, the introduction said it was a love and stock trading show. How did it become a moral drama? Of course, none of this had much to do with Seiya. After all, even if the real murderer was Aqua's father, the other party was not his boss. If he wanted revenge, he would not show any mercy. Kindachi Toshiro, Koburaji Katsuic. Judging from the people on this list, these people are indeed quite influential in the industry. No wonder you chose to join forces with me. You want to rely on my current influence to help you get close to these people, right? Just tell me directly, what do you want to do? Or how do you want me to help you? Seiya is not a fool. When he saw the list, he could roughly guess why Aqua asked him out. Since my suspect is Ruby and me's biological father, all I need to do is find a way to obtain hair or saliva from cigarette butts from the people on the list for DNA testing. I previously eliminated Koburaji Katsuya from the list by helping Arima Kana. However, he seems to know more about the secrets of love, but he also has a condition. Not only does he want me to participate in the reality show Start Dating Seriously Now, but as the producer, he also wants the show to gain a certain level of popularity. Hearing Aqua's words, Seiya understood that, in short, Aqua and Koburaji Katsuya had reached a deal. If they wanted to learn more about Hoshino AI from him, they had to ensure the popularity of the show. However, the reality show Genrin is essentially a promotion for young people in the entertainment industry. While the participants are indeed handsome and beautiful, they themselves are not particularly popular. Koburaji Katsuya is very ambitious. He arranged all the guests for this episode of Current Love, and if these couples can become famous, not only will the industry recognize his ability, but even these young people who are made famous will owe him a favor in the future. Aqua has no problem participating in Current Love, but he is a little unsure about ensuring the popularity of the show. Moreover, just to be on the list of Koburaji Katsuya is completely based on luck, so after hesitating for a long time, he finally decided to seek help from Seiya. Chapter 53, Seiya prepares to appear on a dating reality show. Naturally, Aqua came with genuine intent to collaborate with Seiya in his revenge. Seiya would help him find his enemy, and he would be the executioner. Simply put, he would take the blame. After all, he was prepared to risk his life to avenge his love. Seiya only needed to assist. Once everything was understood, Aqua could face prison alone while Seiya returned to his glamorous celebrity life. This was his bargaining chip. Aqua wasn't worried Seiya wouldn't help him, because to Seiya, the other man was also an enemy. Not only had he indirectly killed his brother, but he had also paralyzed the sister he was protecting. Even if Seiya truly didn't intend to help him, he at least wouldn't report him. This was why Aqua ultimately confessed everything to Seiya. And it turned out that Aqua's gamble paid off. When Seiya finally left, he asked for Kabuki Katsuya's contact information. Meanwhile, Koburaji Katsuya was also quite surprised when he received Seiya's call. Honestly, while he was a moderately famous producer and had amassed a considerable network over the years, the young actors he knew were either new or already out of the spotlight. He rarely had the opportunity to meet a popular star like Seiya. Seiya, on the other hand, immediately explained his purpose, saying his good friend Aqua Hoshino had asked him to appear on this episode of Genrin. Koburaji Katsuya was visibly taken aback by Seiya's words. He had only casually mentioned it to Aqua before, but he hadn't expected the other party to go so far as to even bring in Seiya Hoshino for help. Genrin is a reality dating show aimed at young people, and Seiya is a hugely popular actor. Koburaji Katsuya could already foresee the potential buzz this episode would generate once the trailer was released. Koburaji? Are there any difficulties? If there's really no other way, Koburaji Katsuya was so surprised to hear Seiya's intention to participate in Genkoi that he didn't react for a long time. Seiya, who hadn't heard a response, thought he was having difficulties and was just about to find another way when he heard him speak again. It's only natural that Wenrin-kun wants to participate in a small show like ours. As a dating reality show like Genkoi, we need an equal ratio of men and women. We've already found 3 couples. Wenrin-kun's desire to participate is naturally welcome, but we may not be able to find a suitable couple in a short period of time. But please have faith in our ability. Even if it's just for one night, we will find the right guests. With such a popular actor like Wenrin Seiya taking the initiative, Kaburagi Katsuya and the entire Genkoi project team were unwilling to miss such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The other candidates had already been decided. While it's possible to temporarily remove a male guest and replace him with Seiya, Kaburagi Katsuya, despite appearing unsympathetic and materialistic, still possesses a minimum of professional ethics. Furthermore, the guest was Seiya, a prominent male guest. With such a prominent figure among the male guests, any casual female guest selection would inevitably spark backlash from Seiya's fanbase. Hearing that the other party wasn't saying he didn't want him, but rather that he was worried about not having a female companion, Seiya, after a moment's silence, offered, "In that case, I can introduce you to another female guest, okay?" Seiya practically beat the curfew and went home at 10 o'clock. Yuko and Ako, who had been watching TV, saw him return to his room and simultaneously tiptoed to Seiya's door, pressing their ears against it. That Seiya kid has learned to lie. The tone of his voice makes it sound like he's talking to a male classmate. Kana. That Arima Kana. I remember they used to be close. Yuko, what's going on? Who is this Arima Kana? How come I don't know her? Sister, have you forgotten? Our former neighbors, the Arima family? Oh, right, you weren't awake yet. So you didn't know Seiya and Kana were friends, childhood sweethearts? Yuko, you didn't even tell me something so important. So, this Arima Kana also attends Yangdong High School, so they met again today and are going out on a date tonight. Seiya, in his room, clearly hadn't anticipated the 2 eavesdroppers outside the door. He was indeed speaking to Arima Kana, because he wanted to participate in a present romance and needed a female companion, and Arima Kana was the perfect person. Half an hour ago, upon learning that Seiya could handle the female guest issue himself, Kaburagi Katsuya was equally delighted, stating that if that were the case, then there would be no problem at all. As Seiya pondered the appropriate candidates, a succession of young female faces flashed through his mind, but he eliminated them one by one. This world was a very practical one, and Seiya didn't want to owe anyone a favor if possible. Furthermore, he'd always been casual with those so-called friends, and asking them to appear on such a lowbrow reality show wasn't necessarily a given. Crucially, Kaburagi Katsuya's only requirement was their age, high school students. Because this episode was about campus romance, the guests were all high school students. After a thorough review, Seiya narrowed down his options to 3, Shirin Umeral, Arima Kana, and Sumi Nami, whom he'd just met today. There was no question of Hoshino Ruby, her brother wouldn't approve. To ensure the show's popularity, Shirin Umeral was undoubtedly the best choice. The current super popular actor couple would certainly be a big deal, but the key point was that, unlike himself, Shirin Umeral was signed to an agency. Even if Shirin Umeral herself could offer him the favor, current love would definitely not be able to afford her appearance fee alone. As for Sumi Nami, if he asked, neither she nor her agency, Giant Cannon Fire, would refuse. After all, Sumi Nami was a relatively unknown newcomer, and this kind of work would be an opportunity for her. But Seiya felt that asking someone to be his girlfriend after just meeting her for the first time today, even if it was fake, didn't seem like a good idea. So, after some thought, Seiya decided that Megana was the only choice. Chapter 54 Seiya, Arima Kana, come with me. Seiya has also heard about Kana Arima's current situation. Known as a has-been child star, she seems to have had no work since her fame plummeted. As a good friend, and since Kana Arima had once done him a favor, now is the perfect time to repay the favor. Although in terms of popularity, Kana Arima is not as good as Mariru Shirinu, and in terms of figure, Kana is even poor compared to Sumihoshi. But if Seiya and Kana Arima are paired together, it will also be very attractive. After all, they are childhood sweethearts who debuted as child stars. Current Love is originally a reality show that hypes up couples. The love between childhood sweethearts is already something people look forward to, Not to mention that they are both child stars, which will definitely bring a certain amount of heat to the show. As long as the popularity of the show goes up, Kana, who is paired with Seiya, will definitely gain a certain amount of heat, and even regain popularity. This wave is killing two birds with one stone. Thinking he could kill two birds with one stone, Seiya didn't hesitate. Upon returning home, he immediately picked up his phone and dialed a number he had just saved. Meanwhile, Arima Kana, freshly showered and wrapped in a towel, sat on her bed, her phone at the headboard, a look of uncertainty on her face. She debated whether to talk to Seiya and explain why she had deliberately avoided him 2 years ago. 10 years had passed, and Arima Kana had truly seen the fickleness of human nature. Once unreliable, she had gradually become more mellow and cooperative. Unfortunately, her realization came too late. Her former glory was gone, and even her mother, once so proud of her, had returned home. Arima Kana had assumed that Seiya would become distant, just like everyone else. After all, the current Seiya was completely different from before, and it was clear to her that facing him was like an ugly duckling meeting a swan. But after 2 years of separation, Seiya's actions proved to her that Seiya, hadn't changed. Seeing that Seiya hadn't forgotten her and even considered her a friend, Arima Kana was undoubtedly moved. After all, even her mother had given up on her, but her childhood sweetheart hadn't, and continued to treat her as she always had. Uncertain of whether Seiya might harbor resentment about what happened 2 years ago, Arima Kana had been hesitant about whether to message him. Every time she opened Seiya's line message, she hesitated, worried that he might be busy with work or asleep. After all, Seiya was a popular actor these days, and his schedule was likely very busy, unlike her, who had so much free time. How about sending a message? Maybe he's free. Ding 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 ding. Just as Arima Kana finally made up her mind, finished editing the message, and was about to send it, Seiya's call came. Seeing the profile picture and name on her phone screen, Arima Kana, who had been preparing for a long time, was visibly startled. She even jumped up and down in bed, causing the towel she was wrapped in to fall off. Of course, since she was alone in her room, Arima Kana didn't take it too seriously. Instead, with a look of trepidation and joy on her face, she pressed the answer button. "Hello, Seiya, it's late, what's going on?" Arima Kana's tone was calm, but inside, she was actually quite happy. After all, she hadn't expected that while she was still hesitating whether to send Seiya a line message, Seiya would call her. Kana, actually, I have something I need your help with. Can you please be my girlfriend, Arima Kana, exclamation mark. Happiness had come so suddenly. But wasn't this confession a little hasty? Undoubtedly, upon hearing Seiya's words, Arima Kana's brain instantly froze. Though naked, his face was turning red at a visible rate, and a large amount of steam instantly emerged from his head. Hearing the silence on the other end of the line, Seiya belatedly realized that he might have misspoken. Just as he was about to open his mouth to explain, he heard a loud bang, and his door was violently kicked open by Yuko. Yuko, no. I don't agree with this relationship, Ako. That's right, premature love is not okay. Seiya, you're too young. Believe what your mother says, you can't control it. Seeing Yuko and Ako suddenly bursting through the door, Seiya was also stunned. On the other side of the phone, Arima Kana, who had transformed into a steam princess, had just made up her mind after a brief mental breakdown and was about to say something with a red face. But then she heard Seiya's voice coming from the other end of the phone, saying, "Kana, I have a little problem here. I'll call you later, beep beep beep." Arima Kana was completely stunned when she heard the disconnection from the phone's microphone. First, Seiya's sudden confession, and then when she finally made up her mind and planned to give Seiya an answer, this guy suddenly slipped away. In Wenron's house, in Seiya's room, Seiya at this moment crossed his arms, looked at his adoptive mother and sisters in front of him, and said with an ugly look, "What are you two doing again? No, how did you get in? I remember I locked the door, right? Okay, I said before that some of my collections always disappeared inexplicably, so this is what happened. Yuko-san, don't you have anything to explain about this?" Facing Seiya's questioning, Yuko also knew that she was exposed. It was all because they didn't think too much in a hurry just now, and directly used the spare key to open the door and go in. But it's hard to blame them for being anxious. After all, Seiya was actually confessing his feelings to a girl. A pig they'd raised from infancy was being taken away by someone's cabbage. Who could resist that? HMPH, those are just some cult themes, naturally they should be destroyed. What's so good about Sister Con and Lolita? And Seiya knows, I'm a manga artist. I took those works just to borrow ideas, yes. Just to get some inspiration and ideas, despite being exposed, Yuko still insisted. Meanwhile, Ako was even more blunt. As the older sister, she sided with Seiya, taking the moral high ground and looking at her younger sister, saying, yeah, Yuko, how could you do that? I know you got a spare key to help Seiya clean his room, but you can't just throw away Seiya's things. Yuko, sister, why didn't I know you were such a great tea lover before? Ako, I'm sorry, sister. It's better for you to die alone than for us sisters to die together. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55. There's still one person who hasn't arrived. Who is it? Looking at Ako's impressive acting skills, Seiya slowly picked up a wavy strand of hair from his computer desk and smiled. Yuko-san has long straight hair, and I have black, choppy hair. So, whose hair do you think this belongs to, Ako-san? Faced with his troubled adoptive mother and sisters, Seiya sighed deeply before explaining his intention to film a Genkoi, present love, show. He felt that if the misunderstanding wasn't resolved quickly, given Yuko and her friends' personalities, they might resort to even more suffocating behavior. To avoid further fuss, Seiya explained that what he had just said to Kana Arima was about a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship within the context of Genkoi. Of course, Seiya couldn't tell Yuko and her friends about his deal with Aqua or the discovery of the mastermind. Those events had been a major life-changing event for them. Especially for Ako, who had once wished to die. She had finally found her composure in recent years. Seiya naturally wouldn't bring up the past and provoke her. The next morning, Seiya arrived at a meeting point indicated by Kaburaji Katsuya. Since all of this Genkoi, present love, is set on a campus, filming would naturally take place there. However, the production team chose a different location, not Yangdong High School, but another in the same city. To avoid disrupting the lives of other students, Genkoi filmed on weekends, continuing for a month with 2 episodes per week. Because it's a dating reality show, there are minimal acting requirements and no need for extensive rehearsals. Most of the Genkoi performers are relatively newcomers or internet idols, so they arrived long before the production team arrived at a meeting point. After all, newcomers should be aware of newcomers' behavior. Even though they're still young, they still understand basic courtesy. When Arima Kana arrived at the school where the filming took place, she was visibly taken aback by the sight of 2 men and 3 women already standing at the school gates. She'd thought she was already there early, but she wasn't expecting someone to be even earlier. After a brief moment of surprise, Arima Kana nodded in approval. If she had been so aware as a child, she wouldn't have ended up in this situation. The people waiting at the school gate smiled politely when they saw Arima Kana getting out of the taxi. She was coming to school on a weekend, a beautiful girl of their age, and she was obviously here to film Genrin Run. When they saw Arima Kana, they thought she looked familiar, but they couldn't remember her name. But soon, a beautiful girl with short, purplish-blue hair, upon seeing Kana Arima, exclaimed in surprise, Kana Arima. Thanks to this young woman's reminder, the others present suddenly realized something and said, I remember now, that talented child star. Yes, I've heard her sing the song Big Green Pepper before. Is Kana Arima one of the guests on Current Love? At the mention of green pepper gymnastics, Kana Arima's eyes twitched noticeably. If she were younger, she might have exploded immediately, but she's no longer the naive person she was back then. Considering the people in front of her and the reality show she was about to film, Kana forced a smile and greeted everyone. Through the conversation, Kana Arima quickly learned the names of several people present. Washimi Uayuki, a beautiful girl with wavy blue hair, was a first-year high school student and a professional fashion model. Nobuyuki Kumano, a sunny and handsome guy, a sophomore in high school, a dancer by profession. Kengo Morimoto, an intellectual and handsome guy who seems to be very literary, a junior in high school, a band member by profession. Mem, a playful and cute petite beautiful girl, a junior in high school, a well-known internet blogger by profession. Finally, when Eurymachia looked at the short-haired beautiful girl with blue and purple hair among the few people, the fake smile that she had forced herself to put on was obviously a little bit broken. Akane Kiriko, a sophomore in high school, a stage actor by profession, I would like to thank Eurymachia for your guidance. Looking at the hand that Akane Kiriko extended, Eurymachia shook it with a twitching face. Kana Arima, sophomore, professional actor. Looking forward to your guidance. Kana had barely finished speaking when Akane Kiriko, standing in front of her, feigned surprise and said, "Oh, so Kana-chan is still an actor? I thought you'd retired long ago." It must be said that Kiriko's words were a complete blow to Kana Arima. However, a certain Hat King quickly responded without hesitation, saying, although her fame isn't as great as before, her acting is probably far superior to some lesser-known stage actors. Seeing the aura emanating from the two, even the dumbest of the onlookers knew that they knew each other and seemed to have some past. I don't think I've arrived at the right time. Just as Kana Arima and Akane Kiriko were exchanging barbs, Aqua slowly approached from a distance, looked at the group, and introduced herself as well. Including Aqua-kun, we now have 3 men and 4 women. According to the usual rules of Genkoi, we still have 1 male guest who hasn't arrived yet. Do you know who that remaining person is? It's almost time to meet up, and the production team's car has arrived. Why is this person who hasn't arrived yet so arrogant? Partly to find a topic to ease the tension between Arima Kana and Kiriko Akane, and partly out of genuine curiosity, Washimi Yuayuki directly addressed a topic that concerned everyone present. The entertainment industry is very particular about seniority. Even though these guys are all handsome men and beautiful women, there are plenty of good-looking boys and girls in the industry. If they were big stars, it would be fine, but for these 18th-tier celebrities who aren't even minor celebrities, getting the opportunity to participate is quite rare. Although it's still early before the meeting time, as juniors, it's basic etiquette for them to arrive on set first. Kana Arima, the child star who debuted, was the only one here who could even remotely put on airs, yet she'd already arrived. And the last person, surprisingly, hadn't even arrived yet. Wasn't she afraid of Mr. Kaburaji Katsuya's wrath? That's why Washimi Yuayuki couldn't help but wonder, was their last companion truly ignorant of the rules, or did they have the wherewithal to do so? Chapter 56. Why would such a big shot come here? Mr. Kaburaji's here too. How about we cover for this guy who hasn't arrived yet? Kumano Nobuyuki asked for everyone's opinion. He's such a pain in the ass. Well, let's just help him out this time. After all, if we're missing a guy, one of our girls won't be able to go on stage either. After some thought, Washimi Yuayuki agreed. While Washimi Yuayuki and the others disliked this guy who didn't understand workplace etiquette, it was for their own good. After all, getting the chance to star in Genkoi was a hard-earned opportunity for them. Clearly, Washimi Yuayuki and the others saw this guy, who hadn't even arrived yet, as either an arrogant idiot or a complete newbie. As for the idea of him being a big name, Washimi Yuayuki and the others didn't consider that at all. After all, among the 7 people present, while they all came from various professions in the industry and were all handsome and beautiful, Magana was the only one with any real fame. The dating reality show Genrenren was originally built on a cast of attractive young people. It was originally intended to promote newcomers, so how could they possibly bring in a prominent figure to hype them up? Not to mention whether the production team had the budget, the actors themselves weren't worth that much either. I don't think you need to bother with this, because he's already here. While they didn't arrive as early as we did, he's definitely not late at this time. There's nothing wrong with following the so-called workplace rules, but that only applies to some people. Washimi Yuayuki and the others had originally intended to go to Kaburaji Katsuya's side to cover for Seiya, who hadn't arrived yet. But before they dared take a step, they were stopped by Arima Kana. She had seen a figure greet Kaburaji Katsuya and approached them. As the figure approached closer, and they saw who it was, their mouths dropped open. I'm so sorry. I'd have liked to arrive earlier, but Yuko stayed up late last night working on her manuscript. I tried to take a taxi, but couldn't find one in nearby. My name is Winrin Seiya, a freshman, an actor, and one of the cast members of Genkoi. I'd appreciate your guidance. After hearing Seiya's self-introduction, Washimi Yuayuki and the others finally recovered from their shock. Even so, they were still in disbelief that such a popular actor like Seiya would be filming Genkoi with them. The reason was simply that Seiya's level was vastly different from theirs. To be frank, While they had their own fans, their popularity was only slightly higher than that of ordinary people. But when Seiya was Wu Chu, a leading figure in the younger generation of action movies, his popularity and fan base were astonishing. Even Washimi Yuki and the others were fans of Seiya. When Seiya, such a big shot, is actually filming a dating reality show with us. I'm not dreaming. Wenrin-kun, can you take a picture with me? Putting aside Kirito Akane and Arima-kana for now, when Seiya was confirmed to be the final man on Genrin, Washimi Yuki and Memchu were instantly thrilled and transformed into little fangirls, scrambling to get their picture taken with him. As for fellow males Kumano Nobuyuki and Morimoto Kengo, while they were delighted, they couldn't help but feel a bit of pressure. Genrin is a dating reality show centered entirely around love. Participating men and women can pursue their crushes while the production crew films the entire process. This culture, among young people, is known as shipping couples. While it may be a reality show, it's ultimately a television program for profit. The couple that performs better, attracts more attention, and naturally gets more screen time. With Seiya on board, the popularity of this episode of Genkoi was already high. However, as males, Kumano Nobuyuki and Morimoto Kengo were naturally under immense pressure. After all, the other actor was incredibly popular, so there was no point in competing for him. Aqua, however, didn't mind, as he wasn't in it for fame. Since it was a reality show, there wasn't a specific script, and since everyone was the same age, after the initial shock, Washimi Yuki and the others quickly warmed up to Seiya. Because Seiya was the most popular of the 8, and the others were quite curious about him, the filming of this and the second episode revolved almost entirely around him. Washimi Yuki and Memchu were no fools. Seiya's popularity was already there, and if they could actually pair up with him on Genkoi, their own popularity would undoubtedly skyrocket. Even if they didn't end up pairing up, their interactions with Seiya would still earn them more screen time on the show. Kirito Akane was clearly a reality show star, so she was a bit nervous. Arima-kana, on the other hand, felt incredibly awkward just seeing Seiya's face. After last night's phone call, she'd been lying in bed daydreaming. Half an hour before Seiya's second call, she'd even decided what to name their child, only to be dealt a heavy blow. He explained that there had been some ambiguity in her previous statement, and that the girlfriend he'd been referring to was the girlfriend from the Genrin reality show. Knowing she'd misunderstood, Arima-kana was naturally filled with shame and anger, even wanting to hang up on Seiya right then and there. But when she thought about how much he cared about her, even going so far as to create a scandal to boost her popularity, Arima-kana felt she'd been too willful. It was all a misunderstanding, so she had no reason to be angry with Seiya. Of course, that was the logic, but when she saw Seiya today, she couldn't help but feel awkward, unable to interact with him, as she recalled her fantasies from last night. Because of this, today's shoot consisted almost entirely of interactions between Mem and Seiya. Seiya-kun, why did you want to participate in Genrin? Yeah, is Seiya old enough to want a relationship? I heard in interviews before that you don't seem to have any experience in relationships yet. You're surprisingly innocent. Upon hearing Mem ask such intimate questions, the photographer couldn't help but glance at Kaburagi Katsuya behind them. His eyes clearly indicated whether this part should be cut. After all, for most celebrities, they don't want their private lives to be revealed. Chapter 57 My ideal type is Arima-kana. Kaburagi Katsuya turned to look at Seiya, and upon noticing the latter's nod, a smile crossed his face. It's okay. Reality shows are all about authenticity. And getting to know the incredibly popular actor Seiya's perspective on love will surely be a selling point. Seeing Seiya didn't mind, Kaburagi Katsuya was naturally pleased and even considered turning this clip into a teaser for a potential hit. Seiya didn't shy away from the questions from Washimi Yuki and Memchu. Instead, he looked at Aqua, who was trying to act as a background presence, and said, "What? Did Aqua tell you? He and I are classmates, and I'm participating in Genkoi because he invited me." Upon hearing Seiya's words, the others looked at Aqua in surprise, clearly having no idea that Aqua and Seiya were so close. After all, the two hadn't exchanged a single word since filming began. So, the surprising thing about Seiya participating in Genrin isn't because of a girl, but because of a boy. Mem, as a blogger, clearly knows how to play with memes and liven up the atmosphere. His joke sparked a wave of banter between Seiya and Aqua. Boys with boys? If it's Seiya and Aqua, I suddenly find it surprisingly appealing. Right? Genrenren is a dating reality show, but there's no rule that couples have to be opposite sexes, right? Washimi Yuayuki and Mem's interaction effectively brought the topic back to the focus of Seiya and the marginalized Aqua, bringing everyone in the room to a chorus of laughter. Kaburaji Katsuya, watching from the sidelines, was also quite pleased. Washimi Yuayuki and Mem were newcomers, but they had a surprising talent for variety shows. He had a feeling this episode of Genrenren would be a huge hit, and the people filming it would undoubtedly benefit in some way. Stop kidding. My XP is normal, okay? If you keep messing around like this, the show won't pass review, and the production guys will be in a lot of trouble. Seiya's response also made the Genkoi production team nod their heads. They hadn't expected this super popular actor to be not only talented in acting, but also so good at variety shows. Really? Then, Seiya, tell me, if you were to date, what would your ideal type be? It had to be said that despite being the youngest among the girls on Genkoi, Washimi Yuayuki was incredibly good at grabbing topics and keeping the spotlight on herself. Seiya pondered this topic for a moment, then glanced at Kana Arima, who had been standing in the corner. He couldn't help but say, because I've never been in a relationship, I don't know what kind of girl I like. But if I had to say, it would probably be someone like Arima-san. Hearing Seiya's sudden, shocking words, not only Washimi Yuayuki and the others, but even the Genkoi production staff were awe-stunned. No, Seiya had been silent before, and everyone thought he was trying to avoid the topic. But no one would have thought that after being silent for so long, he was actually reading a bar to unleash his ultimate move. As a super popular actor, is it okay to say something so bluntly? Even on a dating reality show like Genkoi, there would be many people who would take it seriously. Wow. Seiya, you're bolder than I thought. We're only in the first episode, are you going to get mad at Kana-chan? And it's undeniable that Kana-chan is very beautiful, but you two just met today, right? Seiya, how are you sure that Kana-chan is your type? No. That would make people feel frivolous, right? Kana-chan. Kana Arima was obviously unable to answer Washimi Yuayuki's question at this moment, because her face was completely flushed. Last night's phone confession was fine, at least no one was around. But now, in full view of everyone, Seiya actually said she was his ideal type. No, that's not right. I've known Arima-senpai Kana for much longer than you might think. Perhaps you don't know this? We're childhood sweethearts, and it was Kana's help that enabled me to debut as a child actress. As a child, Kana was proud and arrogant, even hurting many with her sharp tongue. But I know full well that she was simply shouldering a burden she shouldn't have at that age, craving recognition. Whenever someone asked her for something, even if it felt awkward, she would always lend a hand. She delighted in recognition and praise, and while she could be quite sharp-tongued and revealing, she was also, at heart, more gentle than anyone. That was the Arima Kana I knew. When Seiya finished his words, Washimi Yuayuki and the others present were stunned. Even Kirito Akane, who had a grudge against Arima Kana as a child, stared at Seiya with a look of surprise. Akane Kirito, who also met Kana Arima as a child and even idolized her, can undoubtedly attest to her childhood personality. Her sharp tongue hurt her as a child, but despite idolizing Kana, she never saw her other side. As for Kana Arima, the subject of much discussion, after hearing Seiya's assessment of her, she once again transformed into a steam queen. Upon seeing the camera pointed at her, she uttered an embarrassed idiot and ran off. Seeing Kana Arima blush and flee, Seiya couldn't help but cover his face with his hands, feeling a surge of weakness. Arima-senpai, I've been trying my damnedest to get you more screen time, but now that the topic and the mood are right, you just run away. All my hard work would be in vain, he said. Yes, in Seiya's view, while Genkoi is a reality show, it's ultimately a performance for the audience. Arima Kana and I are childhood sweethearts. We already know each other well, so it shouldn't be difficult for us to play lovers. So why is Arima Kana running away? She's a professional actor? Why is she stage fright? She has no professional ethics at all. If you run away, how can I continue to act alone? Childhood sweethearts, child star combination, what kind of fairy CP is this? It seems that the rest of us have no chance. Seiya, you idiot, you are really a love muggle. Kana-chan ran away, and you don't even know to chase her. Seiya, should I chase her in this situation? But I didn't do anything wrong. Everyone was speechless. What you said just now, for girls, is almost the same as a deeply affectionate confession with huge lethality. Okay, brothers, please give me some monthly tickets. If you don't have monthly tickets, you can give me some recommendation tickets. I just want to see if there are many people chasing the book. Chapter 58. Finally, a newcomer named Seiya has supernatural powers. By evening, the first week of filming for Genkoi finally wrapped up. Even after just one day, Seiya felt exhausted. Reality shows have no scripts, and they don't require him to perform martial arts moves, yet after a day of filming, Seiya felt inexplicably exhausted. His original plan was to use the role of childhood sweetheart to help Arima Kana create buzz, gradually restore her fame, and let those in the industry see her years of hard work. However, the filming process wasn't as smooth as Seiya had imagined. Arima Kana's complete lack of cooperation was a real headache for him. However, Kaburaji Katsuya was incredibly pleased with the results, and even before the show even aired, he already felt certain that this episode of Genkoi would be a huge hit. A clumsy, super popular actor, a tsundere, washed-up child star, and the two were childhood sweethearts. Even the crew, working off-set, envied their innocent romance. Surely those young people would be madly in love with them? Even Kaburaji Katsuya felt that if Seiya and Kana were to truly be together, they would undoubtedly become the most popular couple since the premiere of Genkoi. After finishing filming that evening, the Genkoi production team and Kaburaji Katsuya returned to the office and worked overtime to create a trailer. They knew this episode of Genkoi would be even more impressive than ever before. The higher the popularity of the show, the greater their salaries and bonuses, so they couldn't help but work hard. Arima Kana, returning home that night, thought about what had happened that day, and her lips curled up unnaturally. Then, shyly, she hugged the stuffed doll beside her. Seiya, exhausted, fell asleep immediately and entered Heartdream Room again, hoping to find a new boss to cuddle with. No matter how many times he entered Heartdream Room, Seiya was always struck by the vast, pure white space. After walking down a long hallway and exiting his room, he suddenly erupted in a dazzling white light. Enveloped by this white light, Seiya's figure suddenly transformed into his 5-year-old self. As their visits to the heart and dream space increased, the Seiyas began to understand some of the characteristics of this pure white space. First, each time they entered, they would revert to their original appearance. I assume Seiya was 5 years old when he first arrived, so each time he entered, he looked like a young boy. Furthermore, within this vast pure white space, each door represented a world, but the flow of time in each world behind the door was independent. The only time flow that was consistent among the Seiyas was within this vast pure white space. As for the time flow rate of this pure white space and its ratio to the flow of time in other worlds, the Seiyas were unaware. They even suspected that the flow of time in their own worlds had stopped when they entered. A big star is here too. Come share your thoughts so I can learn something new. My favorite Seiya had just entered Heart and Dreams when Seiya, who had been chatting with two other Seiyas not far away, suddenly leaped over to my favorite Seiya with a few nimble leaps. Quite a few Seiyas had already arrived at Heart and Dreams, most of them around middle school or high school age. Those with a boyish look like my favorite Seiya were very recognizable in Heart and Dreams. Is he a Seiya too? Why is there a boyish form? What world have we been to, since Seiya's form is here? A boyish form wouldn't be so surprising. But according to anime and film tropes, in worlds centered around children, their combat power levels are generally quite high. Could he be a powerful figure? Seeing Seiya, who had left them and joined the boy Seiya, the other two Seiyas, dressed in school uniforms, followed suit. Before Seiya could answer their questions, Sword Seiya, who had also just entered the dream world, spoke up. He's not the big boss you imagine. He's just in a world with a little more benefits, so he has a few more resources. Upon hearing Sword Seiya's words, the other two Seiyas in school uniforms lit up. And being Seiyas, they clearly had the same train of thought, so they immediately exclaimed in unison, could it be a big boss from the anime world? Explaining is too much trouble. Now there are two newcomers, so let's just share, Balman Seiya said, holding the two newcomers with his ears. Then, with his large, Kazuran eyes, he looked at Seiya and Sword Seiya before him, signaling them to touch him. After a few brief moments, the people, whose abilities and memories had been shared, understood the information. The two new Seiyas. The one in the white shirt hails from the world of Tokyo Ravens. He is a branch of the Tsuchi Mikado family, a renowned Onmyoji clan, and specializes in summoning Shikigami for combat. The one in the black school uniform, on the other hand, hails from the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, where he and Tarajo have been fighting since childhood. Not only has he awakened his cursed powers without any prior instruction, but his physique is also exceptional, making him highly skilled in both taijutsu and ancient martial arts. After sharing the powers and memories of both Raven Seiya and Jujutsu Seiya, the other Seiyas were thrilled. It's been a long time coming, but finally, a close friend with supernatural powers has appeared in their dreams. While Raven Seiya and Jujutsu Seiya may not be considered powerful figures right now, they are at least considered to possess supernatural powers. In a loose sense, Balman Seiya and the Crawler Seiya who transformed into Crawler Seiya are also considered supernatural beings. Unfortunately, their abilities were too weak. While they possessed supernatural powers, that level of supernatural power couldn't even surpass human capabilities, so they'd been overlooked for so long. After sharing the power, Murkrao Seiya and Jujutsu Seiya looked at me pushing Seiya with a mixture of envy and disdain. No, brother, you're a big star now. I remember so many female celebrities trying to get close to you, and you remained calm? You're such a big shot, if you don't try to take advantage of them, you're wasting your status. And you remember such beautiful young foster mothers and sisters, and you haven't shown any filial piety? It's okay that you couldn't drive a big car when you were little, but you're no good as an adult. Disappointing, so disappointing. I thought you'd give us some goodies, but all I see in my memories are books and videos, no actual driving. Not only Murkrao Seiya and Jujutsu Seiya were disappointed, but Rulerman Seiya was even more so. Poor him, he could only evolve to the adult stage of Agumon at best. The Digimon with female appearance are at least in their perfect form, so he really doesn't have enough to fight against. Chapter 59 Return to the Sword World. Seiya felt a bit embarrassed by the scornful stares he received. Over the years, he'd considered experiencing the dark side of the entertainment industry and letting himself get corrupted. But Yuko and Ako kept a close eye on his private life, leaving him no chance for crime. As for a change in filial piety, forget it. It was just a thought. After all, his world was a serious one, not an anime one. What if he was sanctioned? I envy you. In a romance anime world like that, with the power you possess now, you could practically dominate the world. Everyone's Seiya, but you're just busy picking up girls. We have so much more to worry about. It's fine if we know the plot, but in a fantasy world without it, it's like treading on thin ice. Hearing Dark Crow Seiya's words, Jujutsu Seiya nodded in agreement. They'd all seen the memories of several Seiyas, and judging by the current situation, only Sword Seiya was in a more precarious position. The other Seiyas were practically living a proud life in their own worlds. My preference for Seiya goes without saying. If he returns to his own world this time, as long as he doesn't alert the authorities and wield the weapon truth, he'll likely be the world's #1, free to run rampant. Prince of Tennis Seiya is similarly powerful. Originally a sports show about tennis, it's now edging closer to World Destroy in tennis. Balman Seiya and Coolbo Seiya, with their current powers, would probably still be minor players in their own worlds, but they're still the strongest in their growth stages and the strongest Coolbo. The Tokyo Ravens world is actually quite good. The current Seiya, having acquired taijutsu, kendo, cursed power, and the instant death resistance of Krypton, has established himself as a viable player. However, in the Jujutsu Kaisen world, while these abilities have made the original Seiya exponentially stronger, they're still far from enough to save his life. Not to mention the Curse King Ryaman Sukuna, just the opening of the domains of the special grade spellcasters and special grade curse spirits alone would almost certainly kill Seiya if he didn't utilize the damage negation power of the Kali Wave. Fortunately, the storyline hasn't officially begun in his Jujutsu Kaisen world yet. If a new boss emerges in this dimension during this time, perhaps he'll be able to establish his own unrivaled power. After all, while the Jujutsu world is considered a high-risk world compared to the Prince of Tennis and Sword Art worlds, this level of combat power is truly nothing compared to the myriad realms. If a Saiyan monkey or a Deozu were to arrive in this world that day, Ryaman Sukuna would surely bring them to their knees and call them father. Aincrad, 25th floor, Guildenstern. As a rare large city in the floating city, many players who have conquered this floor have chosen to establish guild headquarters or shops there. Seiya's Winrin Trading Company is currently one of the largest businesses in Guildenstern. After returning from between heart and dream, Seiya awoke from his bed and slowly made his way downstairs. The shop he'd rented was a 2-story building, with the upstairs serving as his usual residence and the downstairs serving as the storefront. As he reached the lower floor, Seiya heard a familiar voice. As he saw him descend, a blonde Lolita, about 10 years old, dressed in a maid uniform, greeted him cheerfully. "Good morning, Seiya." Observing the energetic blonde, Seiya turned to an elderly man in his 50s at the counter and said, "Mr. McCall, I'm not saying you and May don't have to come in so early every day. You're making me look like the boss of a shady company, exploiting the labor of the elderly and minors." Before the old man at the counter could even begin to speak, the blonde Lolita, puffing up her cheeks, ran up to him. With a look of displeasure, he declared, "Anyone who says anything bad about Seiya is definitely a bad person. I just wanted to come here early to help, it's none of Grandpa's business. Besides, if I come here sooner, I can see Seiya sooner." Seiya was speechless upon hearing the lolly's words, but despite her expectant expression, he reached out and touched her head. The old man named McCall and the lolly named May were actually a grandfather and grandson. The day of Sao's open beta launch fell on May's birthday, and her father, who had agreed to play games with her, had to rush back to his own company due to some urgent work. Unwilling to disappoint his granddaughter, the nearly 60-year-old McCall entered Sao with his son in his place. The outcome was obvious: they, like all other players, were trapped in the game. Unlike other players, most of those trapped in the game are young. May and Mr. McCall, a 10-year-old and an elderly man, respectively, are left fighting monsters with nothing to show for it. In today's Sao, once your health bar is depleted, you're effectively dead. The already challenging conditions make the situation even more challenging for these grandparents. Having reached their wits' end, they heard about the Winrin Chamber of Commerce offering loans, which led them to Seiya. Seeing May and Mr. McCall, a young girl and an elderly man, suffered from their tragic deaths at the hands of monsters, Seiya, realizing his shop was short on staff, officially hired them. "Seiya, your friend is looking for you over there. I didn't want him to disturb your rest, so he's been waiting for a while." May obediently poured Seiya a cup of tea, then pointed to a figure sitting in the waiting room and quietly spoke to him. Following May's guidance, when Seiya saw a figure dressed entirely in black, the corners of his mouth lifted slightly and he said, "Tisk tisk tisk, isn't this our famous black swordsman? A big shot from the strategy team came to our little shop, is there anything he can take care of?" Hearing the familiar teasing tone and that slightly playful face, Kirito couldn't help but retort with a look of displeasure, "I can't compare to a certain big boss. His life is really corrupt. Not only can he sleep until noon, but he even arranges for a cute lolly maid. I wonder if Sukuhu and Asuna know that someone is a Lolita control." Kirito knew Seiya's sharp tongue. If he didn't learn some yin and yang words, he would be so embarrassed every time he suffered losses. Chapter 60. Mr. Tong came to ask for help. "If you want to insult me like that, that's fine, but knowing you, you've come to me on your own initiative. You must have something you want my help with. If I'm upset, are you sure I'll still agree to help you?" Hearing Seiya's words, Kirito was stunned. Yes, with Seiya's personality, if he gets upset, it's going to be difficult to get his help. From childhood to adulthood, he's always been under his control, and this time seems to be no exception. But Kirito thought again, after all, he's been hurt so many times before, so this time doesn't seem to be any different. In line with the idea that a real man can bend and stretch, Kirito immediately put on an ugly smile and said, "Don't say that, we are close friends who grew up together. Mei-chan has just told me, how can my close friend be that kind of perverted Lolita control? Stop talking nonsense, just tell me directly, what do you want me to help you with this time?" It seemed that he was not used to Kirito's current expression, and this guy didn't know how to flatter people at all. Every time he flattered people, it was extremely stiff. Therefore, before Kirito finished speaking, he was interrupted by Seiya. Although Kirito had been a bit embarrassed by Seiya's teasing about only coming when he had something important to do, he looked at Seiya seriously and said, "Actually, I came to see you this time because I want you to accompany me to clear the maze." Seiya was stunned for a moment at Kirito's request, but then he looked at him seriously and asked, "Has the clearing team found the boss room on the newest floor? But isn't Asuna usually the one who contacts me? Why did you come in person this time?" 6 months had passed since everyone had worked together to clear the first floor's boss. The success of the first floor had boosted the players' morale. In just 6 months, the clearing team, formed by the initial group of players, had been on a tear, clearing all the way to the current 30th floor. Seiya, Kirito, and Asuna were all members of the clearing team, and all were highly renowned figures within it, known as the Saint, the Black Swordsman, and the Flash, respectively. Kirito prefers to be a lone wolf, Asuna joined the leading guild, the Knights of the Blood, and Seiya usually stays at his own trade guild. The three of them often meet and collaborate on floor bosses. Asuna is now the leader of the clearance team, and whenever she finds a floor boss room, she immediately contacts Seiya. Seiya then contacts Kirito, and the three of them once again team up to conquer the floor boss. Asuna is now the vice leader of the Knights of the Blood, and she has repeatedly invited Seiya and Kirito to join her, but they have always declined, citing various reasons. It's not a floor boss, just a simple labyrinth clearing. As for the level, it's around the 28th floor. Seiya, who had initially assumed Kirito was inviting him to a floor boss, was stunned upon hearing Kirito's words. Then, with a look of confusion on his face, he asked, "If I remember correctly, you're already level 48, right? With your level and your skills, you need me as a teammate to explore the 28th floor. Are you kidding me?" Upon hearing Kirito's request for help, Seiya's first thought was that he was playing a trick. The labyrinth area on Aincrad's 28th floor might be somewhat dangerous for the average clearing crew. But for Kirito, who was used to soloing and killing monsters of higher levels, was as easy as eating and drinking. Exploring there was like going on a spring outing. Kirito saw his friend's reaction and realized he hadn't explained it clearly, so he continued, "Actually, there are others besides us." Hearing Kirito's words, Seiya initially thought it was Asuna, but then he realized that if it was Asuna, she shouldn't have come to him. After all, Asuna was no longer the newbie she once was. Known as Flash, she was fully capable of running rampant on the 28th floor. That wasn't Asuna, either, but a few players called Moonlit Black Cats. Their level wasn't high, but they wanted to explore the upper levels this time. "I couldn't stop them, so I had to bring you along as a safety precaution." Kirito then began to recount his recent experiences to Seiya. Simply put, Kirito, who had always been a solo player, met several members of Moonlit Black Cats by chance, and, influenced by their atmosphere, eventually joined the guild. However, he didn't want to be alienated by his status as the leader of the clearers, so he concealed his true level and strength. After all, growing up, Kirito had few friends his own age besides Seiya, and he enjoyed the atmosphere of the Moonlit Night Black Cats. Kirito was well aware of the strength of the Moonlit Night Black Cats, even though his covert help had steadily improved their abilities. However, with such strength, exploring the 28th floor, still considered the frontier, was still too dangerous. Seiya, sitting across from Kirito, had already remembered who they were the moment he mentioned the name Moonlit Night Black Cats. While the Moonlit Night Black Cats didn't play a large role in the original story, it was that incident that propelled Kirito further and further into the world of solo players. Seiya's most memorable character was a girl named Sachi from the Moonlit Night Black Cats. She was Kirito's true first love, the first girl he'd fallen in love with before falling for Matakana. If Seiya remembered correctly, Kirito and this girl named Sachi even shared an item list. You know, in-game male and female players who do this are generally considered a couple. If they take it a step further, it means they're married, sharing all items and money. So, you came to me today because you wanted me to be your babysitter. Isn't it nice to be a solo player? Remember what I said before. You're a guild-killing saint. Any guild you join will be in trouble. Seiya wasn't just making this up, he believed Kirito might actually have that trait. Initially, he joined the Moonlit Black Cats, which led to their annihilation. Later, he was invited by Asuna to join the Blood Knights, where it was revealed that the strongest guild leader was actually Kaiba Akihiko. Although the Blood Alliance Knights were not wiped out, even the leader was a villain, and it was basically no different from being in name only. Chapter 61, Seiya's Poisonous Tongue Max. Aincrad, 27th floor, Lombard. Several members of the Moonlit Black Cats had been waiting at the teleportation gate, ready to go. Sasamaru, the thief, checked the time, then looked aside. Sachi, a shy figure dressed in light blue clothing and armor, with shoulder-length dark blue hair, asked, "Sachi, hasn't Kirito arrived yet?" Sachi, who was being questioned, opened a pop-up message and read it. Kirito-kun said that Guild President Kita is going to buy a guild base, so the team is short one person, and he's going to find a reliable friend to help. Really? Kirito's good in everything, except a little too cautious. I think with our current strength, we can easily explore the next floor. Even without Kita as a frontline warrior, we can still handle it easily, the golden-haired thief named Sasamaru said, patting his chest loudly, implying that Kirito was making a big deal out of nothing. His other two companions, Tetsuo and Dakar, didn't say anything, but they were actually thinking the same thing. Ever since Kirito joined the Moonlit Night Black Cats, he had concealed his true level, but every time he fought, he had been secretly working hard and taking care of the others. Some time ago, they even managed to kill elite monsters they encountered in the wild, which made several members of the Moonlit Night Black Cats start to become a little arrogant. The members of the Moonlit Night Black Cats are actually all members of the same club, and since they are all young, their momentary complacency made them feel that they were quite awesome, which led to this adventure. Kirito and Yuki were originally against it, but when the five of them voted, the suicidal trio had 3 votes, while Kirito and his team only had 2 votes. I originally thought the guild Kirito joined would be quite impressive, but now it seems I had too high expectations. With a flash of light, Seiya and Kirito, powered by the teleportation crystal, appeared directly before the members of the Moonlit Black Cats. And the words just now were undoubtedly spoken by Seiya, who was standing beside Kirito. The Moonlit Black Cats weren't a famous or powerful guild, with only 6 members, including Kirito, but they all had a very close relationship. Upon hearing Seiya's words, even though Seiya was a friend Kirito had brought in, Sasamaru and the others were furious. What do you mean by that? Are you saying our guild isn't worthy of Kirito? Ever since being trapped in this death game, the members of the Moonlit Black Cats had supported each other and persevered until now. To them, this guild was more than just a gaming guild. Even though Seiya was a friend Kirito had brought in, Sasamaru and the others naturally wouldn't treat Seiya with the slightest bit of leniency for insulting their guild. Kirito, who was about to introduce Seiya to the Moonlit Black Cats, immediately covered his face with his hands when he saw his friend's taunting response. How could he have forgotten that his childhood friend had a sharp tongue? Sasamaru, calm down. Seiya didn't mean that. I'm sorry, that's exactly what I meant. Before coming here, I was curious about how Kirito, a socially anxious and autistic person, would actually join the guild. I've always wondered what kind of charismatic person would be able to change his mind. But after hearing what you just said, I feel like you're just a bunch of fools who don't know what they're capable of. Kirito, who had intended to mediate, was interrupted by Seiya. Sasamaru, standing across from him, was furious at Seiya's blatant taunting and wanted to attack, but Yuki quickly stopped him. Sasamaru-kun, calm down. This is a safe zone. If you start hitting someone first, the system will classify you as a malicious PK. Zing, aren't you angry that this arrogant fellow looks down on us like this? Sasamaru had barely finished speaking when Seiya shoved Kirito, who was attempting to cover his mouth, away and spoke with a look of disdain. You should be thankful this is a safe zone. If we were out in the wild or in the labyrinth, even if all 3 of you attacked, you'd be the only ones killed. But with your game-playing mentality, you'll be killed by monsters sooner or later. Better for me to finish you off first. As he spoke, Seiya glared fiercely at Sasamaru and the others. Though they were of similar age, Seiya, who shared the abilities and memories of multiple worlds, possessed far more experience than they did. Seeing Seiya's serious expression, as if he wasn't joking, Sasamaru and the others, who were about to continue their harsh words, suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. If you're angry because I spoke disrespectfully to your guild, it means you value your guild and your companions. But have you ever considered whether your actions might put your companions in danger? Do you think you're strong enough to explore higher areas? That's ridiculous. If your life were in danger, would you be responsible? Boy, this isn't a game. If you die because of your stupidity, you deserve it, but what about your companions? Seeing Sasamaru and the others rage, Seiya's next words left them stunned. Kirito, who had been trying to stop Seiya, realized Seiya's true intentions and stopped trying. Kirito may be a loner, indecisive, and full of flaws, but his skills are impeccable. He's been invited to join a number of top-tier guilds before, but he's rejected them all. But this time, he's joined your Moonlit Black Cats. Honestly, I was initially curious about what kind of guild you are and what kind of people you are, but I wasn't expecting your first impression to disappoint me. I don't know the strength of your Moonlit Black Cats, and that's unimportant. The quality of a guild isn't solely determined by strength. Level and strength can grow eventually, but those who put their companions in danger due to their own arrogance are, in my opinion, nothing better than trash. Seiya has no fondness for the other members of the Moonlit Black Cats, save for Kirito's first love, Sachi, and the guild leader, Kita, who, out of guilt upon learning of his companions' deaths, jumped from the floating tower. It's the last day of this month, I'm begging for the monthly tickets from all the big guys. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62, Summoning Shikigami for the First Time. As the saying goes, if you don't seek death, you won't die. Seiya often jokingly called Kirito the Guild Buster, but ultimately, the annihilation of the Moonlit Black Cats was largely due to the reckless behavior of the yellow-haired group. I know you might be quite unconvinced by just words. Did you want to prove your strength on the 28th floor? Then let's go. I believe that harsh reality will soon reveal the folly of your previous actions. After his barrage of venomous words, Seiya walked comfortably into the portal, not even acknowledging Kirito and the others. Kirito looked at Susamu and the others, who were somewhat annoyed but unable to refute him, and didn't know how to ease the awkward situation. He had originally asked Seiya to come as a strong force to ensure the safety of his companions, but who knew that Seiya had just arrived and already offended everyone in the Moonlit Black Cats? Susamu and the others were already in a bad mood after Seiya's recent scolding, and their original desire to explore the upper floors was gone. Just as they were about to head back home, a hand reached out from the portal, waving at them. A voice, infuriating Susamu and the others, shouted, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and follow, or are you already scared?" Susamu and the others, young and energetic, couldn't bear the taunts of Seiya, so without a second thought, they followed through the portal. After Susamu and the other two left, Kirito and Sachi exchanged bewildered glances before sighing and following. The 28th floor was a wolf plain, meaning they had to cross a vast grassland before reaching the labyrinth. The monsters in the grassland were around level 35, making them a breeze for Seiya and Kirito, who were levels 46 and 48, respectively. However, aside from Susamu, the higher-level thief, the rest of the Moonlit Black Cats struggled to cope with the monsters even on their own. Determined to prove themselves, Susamu, Tetsuo, and Ikar led the attacking group, with Seiya leading the way, each taking down the attacking monsters. To reassure these individuals, Seiya instructed Kirito to refrain from his previous covert assistance unless absolutely necessary. Initially, thanks to their tacit teamwork and the addition of Sachi, the Susamu and his companions managed to hold their own, albeit with some difficulty. However, when the hyenas of Wolf Plain appeared, Susamu and his companions, already depleted of their stamina, began to panic. As their health bars dwindled, their previous complacency vanished, replaced by intense fear and anxiety. Just as Susamu and his companions finally couldn't bear the pressure anymore, and seeing the hyenas growing larger and larger, they took out their transfer crystals and prepared to flee when a figure suddenly appeared before them. Wenrin swordsmanship style 1 Ranga, with a swift, wind-like slash, a hyena that had leaped towards them was cleaved in two. The monster's health bar was instantly depleted, and it vanished into a pile of data. After instantly killing the hyena, Seiya didn't stop. Instead, he pushed off the ground and sprinted straight ahead, piercing another hyena's abdomen with his one-handed sword. He then charged single-handedly into the hyena pack. "Hey, are you crazy? Those are hyenas. Tetsuo, Yuki, you two should go first. I can't leave him alone and run away, or I'll become the coward and trash he calls me." Although Seiya's previous sharp words had made Susamu and his companions dislike him, the fact remained that he had just saved them. And just as Seiya had said, their predicament ultimately stemmed from their own arrogance. He had put everyone in danger. If Seiya, who had just saved them, were to leave, wouldn't he be nothing more than trash? Just as Susamu shoved the transfer crystal to Yukichi beside him and prepared to charge the hyenas with a fearless defiance, Kirito suddenly intervened. "Don't worry, if it were Seiya, this level wouldn't be a big deal to him." Susamu and his companions initially didn't understand Kirito's meaning, but upon seeing the movement in the distance, they were stunned by the scene before them. The area where the hyenas had gathered was suddenly filled with hyenas, one after another, flying backwards and disappearing into data fragments as they hit the ground. Seiya, who had been surrounded, reappeared in their sight. Wenrin sword style, Form 3, Broken Army, sword light flashed like a flowing cloud, and Seiya, facing the vast number of hyenas, was like a god of war. Not only did he nimbly dodge attacks, but his one-handed sword swiftly dispatched the hyena monsters that lunged at him, one by one. Shikigami Summon, Azure Dragon, Tailed Fire Tiger, apparently, realizing the sheer number of monsters, attempting to single-handedly annihilate them all seemed a waste of time. Thinking of his newly acquired power, and seeing this as a perfect opportunity to test it out, Seiya's lips curled slightly, and with his free hand, he made a flurry of gestures in the air. A massive magic circle swiftly formed from Seiya's fingertips, followed by a towering column of flames. A massive, flaming tiger, its tail blazing, burst forth from the flames. Initially, the sight of the massive flaming tiger startled not only the members of the Moonlight Black Cats, but even Kirito himself. Thinking it was a wild boss, he unsheathed his one-handed sword, ready to join the fray. After all, the current situation wasn't the time to consider concealing his level. Even someone as powerful as Seiya couldn't defeat both the hyenas and this wild boss simultaneously. His previous deception of the Moonlight Black Cats might have earned him criticism and blame, but compared to the danger Seiya now faced, it was nothing. Roar! Just as Kirito was about to rush forward to help, he was surprised to discover that the suddenly appearing flaming tiger didn't attack Seiya. Instead, it swung its claws and shattered the hyenas in front of it. Kirito-kun, that suddenly appearing flaming tiger doesn't seem to be a monster. Its health bar is all green. Hearing Yuki's warning, Kirito looked at the tail fire tiger in surprise, only to realize, with a startled expression, that the suddenly appearing flaming tiger was actually an ally. Chapter 63, Seiya's Unique Skills. Seiya could have easily slaughtered the hyena monsters on the 28th floor by himself, it would simply take a little longer. But when he summoned Tail Fire Tiger, the situation instantly became one-sided. The hyena monsters on the 28th floor were slightly larger than typical hyenas, but only more ferocious in appearance. The Tail Fire Tiger summoned by Seiya stood 2 or 3 meters tall, its tail and forward ablaze with flames, and its limbs left trails of flaming footprints when it stomped the ground. Even without considering their level and strength, the difference between the hyenas on the 28th floor and Tail Fire Tiger was clear in appearance. Roar! Just as Tail Fire Tiger crushed the last hyena monster into data fragments and let out a high-pitched roar, it dissipated into sparks and gradually dissipated into the air. As for the Moonlight Black Cats, who had witnessed the entire process, their eyes and demeanor were completely different when they saw Seiya approaching them. Although they had heard Kirito say that their friend was reliable and powerful, they hadn't imagined Seiya's strength to be this level. He single-handedly wiped out a pack of hyenas over level 35, unscathed. How could he be reliable? He was simply a master. And that giant flaming tiger that had appeared earlier was so powerful they thought it was a boss, but it turned out to be just a summon of Seiya. No wonder he was so arrogant, he had every right to be so arrogant. To be frank, if they had engaged him earlier, even without him personally, the mere summoning of that flaming tiger would have been enough to wipe out the entire Moonlit Night Black Cats. Seiya, what was that tiger? It wasn't just the members of the Moonlit Night Black Cats who were surprised. Even Kirito, who considered himself quite familiar with Seiya, looked at him with curiosity. Clearly, even after knowing Seiya for so long, this was the first time he'd seen him use such power, so curiosity was understandable. Kirito, you should know that Sao has a mechanic called unique skills. Unique skills are unique, and the conditions for obtaining them are unknown. But I can assure you, they do exist. Some Sao players have long believed that unique skills in Sao are a rumor, as no one has ever obtained them in either the closed beta or the public beta. However, as a time traveler, Seiya knew full well that such unique skills definitely exist. After all, Kirito in front of him and Kaiba Akihiko, using the alias Heathcliff, possessed unique skills called Dual Sword Style and Holy Sword, respectively. So, the ability you just used is one of Sao's unique skills? You really did obtain a unique skill. How did you get it? Tell me quickly. Kirito's excitement grew when he heard about the game, especially since the topic was about a unique skill he'd only heard of but never seen. Facing Kirito's excited expression, Seiya could only sigh deeply before continuing, The unique skill I possess is called Shikigami Sword. As the name suggests, it allows me to summon the Shikigami within my sword. I'm not entirely sure what the conditions are for this unique skill. I just woke up and the system suddenly notified me of my new skill. Of course, much of what Seiya said was fabricated. His ability to summon Shikigami was entirely due to sharing the abilities of Dark Crow Seiya. What he hadn't expected was that this ability was actually recognized and usable within Sao. Kirito had grown up with him and knew that his only skill was kendo. His sudden appearance of Amaiji was clearly inexplicable. If that was the case, then the only explanation was skill. After all, this was a game world, and any supernatural occurrence was acceptable. Seiya wasn't afraid of his lies being exposed. After all, even Kaiba Akihiko, despite being Sao's primary developer, couldn't know all of Sao's design and programming. Designing a game of this magnitude couldn't be accomplished solely by one person, so even Kaiba Akihiko couldn't possibly know how many skills and items existed in the game. You're the illegitimate child of the world. This is outrageous. You actually got a unique skill that only existed in player legends just by sleeping. Hearing Seiya's words, Kirito felt even more heartbroken. Seiya was already slightly stronger than him due to his kendo skills, and all he could do to close the gap was level up higher than Seiya, using his level and attributes to even out their abilities. But what struck Kirito as injustice was that he'd been killing monsters day and night, yet he hadn't gained any of these unique skills. Seiya, who slept until noon every day and even hired a lolly maid, had somehow managed to acquire a unique skill while sleeping. How the hell was that? After this incident, and after witnessing the strength Seiya had just displayed, Sasamaru and the others from the Moonlit Black Cats had completely changed their attitudes. Chuonibyao are like that. They might be a little silly, but as long as their nature is good, they will grow tremendously after realizing their mistakes. Seeing Sasamaru and the others surrounding Seiya, cheerfully calling him Seiya-sama, Sachi, who was walking at the end of the group with Kirito, couldn't help but chuckle. As expected, people who can be friends with you, Kirito-kun, are just as gentle as you. Seiya-kun used to say those harsh things when we met, but that must have been intentional, right? Sasamaru and the others seem to have grown up so much in an instant. They're truly amazing people. Not only are they strong and handsome, but they're also so thoughtful and considerate. Kirito, who had been contemplating his unique skills, instinctively nodded in agreement when he heard Sachi's praise of Seiya. But he quickly realized that something was wrong. He first looked at Seiya, who had a handsome face in front of him, and then looked at Yuki beside him. He immediately said in a panic, "That Yuki, you can't just look at the surface of things." Although Seiya is strong and handsome, not only has good relationships with people but also values friendship, he also has a lot of small flaws. For example, this guy is a lolicon. And he has good relationships with many girls, such as Asuna and my sister Suguha. In short, Yuki, please, Pucci. Looking at the panicked Kirito, Yuki couldn't help laughing after all. Then he looked at Kirito seriously and said, Seiya-kun is indeed very good, but in my opinion, Kirito-kun is no worse than him. Chapter 64 Seiya, this is not the Shura field I want to see. Seiya, sharing the power of multiple worlds, was already perceptive. Though at a distance, he overheard Kirito and Sachi's conversation and was caught off guard by a wave of affection. Because of his interference, the Moonlit Black Cats would surely survive. This meant that Sachi, Kirito's first love, wouldn't die. So, with Kirito's true love now Sachi, what would happen to Honkona? After all, according to the plot, while Kirito met Asuna first, it was Kohu he fell in love with first. After Sachi's death, Kirito even challenged the demonized Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. However, upon learning that the so-called resurrection item only lasted 10 seconds, he considered suicide. This clearly shows that Kirito was truly deeply in love with Sachi at the time, and even Asuna wouldn't have been able to rival her. Having averted a tragedy and saved several lives, he ultimately destroyed Honkona's position as the primary wife. By dusk, Seiya and his companions returned to the town of Guildenstern on the 25th floor. After politely declining the invitation to celebrate from the Moonlit Black Cats, Seiya couldn't help but feel a headache watching Kirito and Sachi's affectionate relationship. Seeing how close Kirito and Sachi were, it seemed like marriage was just a matter of time. Then, Matako-na exclaimed, Seiya, where have you been all day? Do you know I've been waiting in your shop all afternoon? If Maya hadn't told me I might have seen you here, I guess, Just as Seiya was about to say goodbye to Kirito and the others, a figure, upon seeing Seiya, suddenly ran over angrily, grabbed one of Seiya's ears, and began twisting it. However, the angry Asuna soon realized that as soon as she twisted Seiya's ear, the people in front of her suddenly looked at her with curiosity. This instantly made Asuna realize that there were outsiders present, and she blushed. "Hey, Kirito, you're here too. Long time no see. Who are these guys?" Kirito politely nodded in response to Asuna's greeting. He wanted to complain that he'd been here the entire time, but Asuna only saw Seiya and not him. But the words finally came to his lips. "Yeah, Asuna, it's been a while too. These are the members of my current guild, the Moonlit Black Cats. They're Susamu, Tetsuo, Dakar, and Sachi." Seiya, standing beside him, was visibly excited when Kirito introduced Sachi. After all, this was a tragic battle between first love and first wife. While such gloating felt a bit unfair to his friend, as a bystander who loved to be a part of the fun, he was still quite interested in the scene before him. "My name is Asuna, and I'm glad to meet you. I didn't expect that Kirito, who likes to go it alone, has joined the guild. I invited him many times before, but he always rejected me. Now it seems that what he said before about being alone was a lie, and it's true that there is no one in the guild that he cares about, right?" Asuna said this. She glanced meaningfully at Yuki, who was standing next to Kirito. As a woman, Asuna is naturally very sensitive to emotions. Although they have not been together for a long time, she can tell at a glance that there is definitely a problem between Kirito and Yuki. Seiya, who was standing next to them, was excited, wondering how Yuki would respond to Asuna's active attack, and how their battle would end. But what Asuna said next made Seiya freeze in his tracks. "But Yuki, you have good taste. Kirito-kun may be clumsy at times, but he's a very responsible person, completely different from that guy. As his friend, I'm also very happy that he has found such good friends like you." Hearing Asuna's words, Yuki bowed gracefully to express his gratitude, while Seiya, who was waiting to see the bloodshed, was completely stunned. The battle ended just like that? This is not right. Why is Hanzuna so weak? Wasn't she quite capable in the battles with other female characters in the story? Or is Yuki actually a hidden master, and she just used some killer move that he didn't understand? Seiya, now that even a famous solo player like Kirito has joined the guild, shouldn't you consider giving up your struggle and joining ours? Hearing Asuna's sudden and unprovoked words, Seiya was completely stunned. This is not right. Hanzuna saw Kirito having an affair and didn't react at all, but now why are you targeting me? Kirito joined the Moonlit Black Cats because of luck. Is there any necessary connection between this and whether or not I, Seiya, will join your Asuna's guild? No, please just let me go. Joining a guild isn't for me. Besides, you, Shining Asuna, are a superstar in the Clearers group. Every time I'm next to you, I feel so much pressure. Those male players always look at me with eyes that want to kill me. Being in the same guild with you, I might as well just get rid of them. Hearing Seiya's unhesitating refusal, Asuna's face immediately puffed up, and then she angrily elbowed Seiya in the back, saying, "Are you, Saint, such a weak character? Are you afraid of being troubled? And I've already found the thing you asked me to find for you last time. If you don't agree to my request this time, then I won't give it to you." After hearing Asuna's words, the Moonlight Black Cats present exclaimed in belated realization, "Shining Asuna and Saint Seiya? No wonder your name sounded familiar before. It really is you, but aren't Flash and Saint both big shots in the Clearers group? Why are they friends with Kirito? Could it be that, seeing that he couldn't hide it any longer, Kirito didn't choose to conceal it anymore, but directly admitted the fact that he was also a member of the Clearers group? But what surprised Kirito was that the members of the Moonlit Black Cats, including Sachi, were not too surprised after learning the truth. They were just young, but not really stupid. Ever since Kirito joined their guild has been going smoothly and its strength has increased rapidly. They may not have noticed this before, but after seeing Seiya's performance today, Susamu and the others realized that Kirito's level and strength were not at the same level as theirs at all. And what Kirito had worried about before did not happen. After learning his true level, Susamu and the others not only did not exclude Kirito, but even sighed that they were so lucky to have been able to get a big shot to join them. Chapter 65. Where did this straight man come from? Upon learning that Seiya and Asuna were the renowned saints and flashes of the Clearers, Susamu and the others were thrilled. After all, to them, The clearers were already bigwigs, and the renowned saints and flashes of the clearers were even bigger bosses. Previously, they had never had the opportunity to interact with such figures, but now, thanks to Kirito, they had the opportunity to do so up close. Kirito-kun, is Asuna-san interested in Seiya-kun? Just as Asuna had previously sensed the ambiguity between Kirito and Sachi, Sachi, as a woman, could also sense that Asuna seemed to have a certain fondness for Seiya. Hearing Yuki's soft question, Kirito whispered to her quietly, "You feel it too, right?" I don't know why, Seiya is usually a very thoughtful guy, but when facing Asuna, he is like a piece of wood. No, it's not accurate to say he is a piece of wood. It should be said that he always seems to think that the person Asuna likes is me, so he has always maintained a good friend relationship with Asuna and never crosses the line. After hearing Kirito's words and looking at the almost impeccable Asuna in front of her, Yuki suddenly felt that Asuna was too pitiful. Why would such a shining person fall in love with such a piece of wood? As a good friend of the two, Kirito is not suitable to interfere in such matters, but there is no problem with her words. As a woman, Yuki knows very well what it feels like to like someone, so she decided to help Asuna. Ms. Asuna, does Seiya often ask you to help him find things? Although she didn't know why Zing suddenly asked such a question, out of politeness, Asuna nodded and replied, "Not often, it's just that this guy is often lazy. And I have been fighting on the front line of the strategy team, so I often pick up some rarer materials. The reason why I came to find this guy today is because he said last time that he had found the right materials for forging the sword. Who knew that this hateful guy would leave me alone for so long?" Hearing Asuna's complaint, Zing suddenly felt more sympathetic to her, and the look he gave to Seiya was even as if he was looking at a scumbag. But soon, Zing seemed to remember something and said, "Since Miss Asuna and Seiya often exchange props, why not set up a page of shared props column? This is what Kirito and I did. In this way, Miss Asuna won't have to put down her work and come to Seiya in person in the future." Hearing Zing's suggestion, both Seiya and Kirito were obviously stunned for a moment, but Seiya reacted quickly and said, No, setting up a shared prop column is for couples only, Asuna. Oh, so there is such a function in this game. Thank you so much, Zing. Then please tell me how to operate it specifically. Seiya was only halfway through his words when he was interrupted by Asuna, who was looking excited. Under Yuki's guidance, Seiya's system interface soon received the confirmation permission for the shared item bar. To be honest, if it was in the past, Seiya would probably click on the rejection without saying a word. After all, setting up a shared item bar is almost like confirming a couple's relationship in the game. But now, looking at Asuna, who was looking at him with anticipation, and Yuki, who was looking at him with a threatening look, Seiya couldn't help but sigh loudly, and finally clicked on the confirmation. That's great, Miss Asuna. You should try to put the materials you originally prepared for Seiya into the shared item bar. Seiya, too, you should put something in quickly. You should also have something from Miss Asuna. Seiya had not expected that Yuki, who should have been very shy, was unexpectedly strong in this aspect. And soon, at Yuki's urging, Seiya also put a top-quality rapier named Meteor into the shared item bar that the two had just created. At first, Asuna wanted Yuki to not make things too difficult for Seiya, but when Asuna took out a Meteor rapier from the shared item bar, the starlight that bloomed from the rapier made her tearful for a moment. With just one glance, Asuna could see that the rapier in her hand was definitely the best of the best, and not something Seiya used to make up. Seiya and Kirito both used one-handed swords, so this rapier was obviously prepared for her from the beginning. I commissioned a friend to forge this meteor. The material used is the rare metal star steel that you gave me last time. I originally planned to give it to you as a Christmas gift, but now I'm giving it to you in advance, so don't say I didn't give you a surprise then. After taking a look at the meteor in Asuna's hand, Yuki couldn't help but show a look of envy on her face. Because she could also see that what Seiya prepared for Asuna was obviously very thoughtful. However, just when Yuki's opinion of Seiya changed drastically, and she thought that her assist might have directly prompted Seiya and Asuna to become a couple, Seiya's next words made Yuki speechless. After giving the meteor to Asuna, Seiya turned to look at Kirito, and took out a blue and white one-handed sword and handed it to him and said, "Kirito, Asuna's Christmas gift has been taken in advance, do you want to receive yours in advance too?" Hearing what Seiya said, Kirito was speechless. Looking at the one-handed sword in Seiya's hand, He didn't know whether to take it or not. Kirito wanted to say no, but he knew very well that as a wealthy man like Seiya, the quality of the weapons he took out would not be too bad. But if it's a Christmas gift, you should take it out at Christmas. Why take it out at this critical moment? How the hell should I take it? Seeing Seiya's tricks, Xing next to Asuna asked with a confused look on her face. So not only Asuna has a gift, but Seiya-kun also prepared one for Kirito. Facing Xing's surprised look, Seiya showed a strange expression, and then said in a matter-of-fact tone, Asuna and Kirito are my friends. Since it's a Christmas gift, I naturally can't favor one over the other. After hearing Seiya's answer, not only Xing, but even the members of the Moonlight Black Cat group were speechless. Especially Xing. She had originally wanted to use the gift that Seiya had carefully prepared to give him some points, but she found that this guy really couldn't carry it. Thanks to Sagiri Milk Tea for the reward of 5,000 starting coins, thank you. Chapter 66, Benzina is already a married woman? Seeing Seiya still somewhat confused, Yuki was about to offer a warning, but was quickly stopped by Asuna beside him. Yuki, thank you so much for helping me. I'm already very satisfied with the outcome. That's just Seiya's nature. After all, no matter what, you have to take things step by step, right? Seeing Asuna smile, which seemed to hint at something, Yuki's face flushed. However, she soon realized that outsiders could only serve as wingmen when it came to relationships, and there was nothing more they could do to help. Asuna-san is truly a perfect person, beautiful, understanding, and simply a shining presence. Girls' friendships often come suddenly and unexpectedly, but after this incident, Asuna and Yuki became quite close friends. Even as Kirito and the Moonlight Black Cats left, Seiya, looking at Asuna beside him, remained in disbelief. He couldn't understand why the first encounter between the wife and her first love was so harmonious. Asuna and Sachi's encounter not only didn't result in a bloodbath, but they even became good friends. This, in Seiya's opinion, was simply outrageous, opening the door to outrageousness, outrageous to the extreme. Asuna, what do you think of Sachi? She's with Kirito, don't you feel unhappy or something? Because what just happened was really beyond Seiya's expectations. Looking at Asuna who is still fiddling with the meteor beside him, Seiya also asked carefully. Xing is a very nice girl, and I think she'd be a perfect match for Kirito-kun. By the way, Seiya, are you free now? I just got a new weapon, and I'm itching to play. Let's go PvP. Of course. Considering you're the national kendo champion, it's probably okay if you give me some time, right? Well, okay, since you're okay with that, then it's happily settled. In this PvP, you're not allowed to use weapons, and there's no time limit. Seiya was only halfway through his sentence when Asuna interrupted him. With a smile on her face, she presented Seiya with a completely unfair PvP request. No weapons, damn. What's the difference between me and a lamb to the slaughter? You're definitely pissed. As expected, even though you acted nonchalant, seeing Kirito and Xing together definitely pissed you off. Asuna, who had been in a good mood due to receiving the shooting star, was now furious after hearing Seiya's words. Then, without caring whether Seiya was willing or not, she simply took Seiya's hand and clicked the agree to duel option on the system interface in front of him. Forced into this completely unfair PvP duel, Asuna had just thought she could vent her anger on the abominable being before her, but Seiya counterattacked by summoning a giant flaming tiger and a gigantic bird. Previously, Seiya would have been unable to defeat Asuna without weapons. However, after the last power sharing, Seiya had transformed. Not only could he now summon Shikigami to fight, but his martial arts were equally formidable even without the use of swordsmanship. Divider Line Grantham, the 55th floor of Aincrad. This main town, constructed from gleaming black steel, is known as the Iron City. It is also home to the Blood Knights, Sao's most powerful guild. After completing team training for the day, Asuna, the vice leader of the Blood Knights, prepared to return home early. Asuna, you've worked hard today. And have you told Seiya yet? Asuna was about to leave the Knights' headquarters when a gray-haired, middle-aged man in red knight armor called out to her from behind. This man, none other than Heathcliff, leader of the Knights of the Blood and known as the strongest player alive, was none other than Heathcliff. Heathcliff was so formidable that it was said he single-handedly held the faltering front for 10 minutes in a 50th floor boss battle. Furthermore, it was said that his HP had never dropped below 50%, yet, in the entire game. Well, I haven't had time to tell him yet, But knowing his personality, he probably won't agree. But I'll try to persuade him. After bidding Heathcliff farewell, Asuna sighed deeply and returned to Algade, the 50th floor of Aincrad, alone. Algade, on the 50th floor of Aincrad, is the most prosperous of the towns currently being conquered in Aincrad, aside from the starting street on the first floor. While its streets can only be described as cluttered, they are dotted with a variety of shops and stalls. Compared to the starting street on the first floor, the player level here is also higher. After arriving on the 50th floor, Asuna first bought some edible warcraft ingredients from a few players setting up stalls, then visited her old friend Agil's general store. Agil, do you have any good ingredients today? Seeing Asuna appear before him, like a housewife, carrying a basket on her wrist, Agil wasn't surprised at all. For 6 months, the renowned Flash among the clearers had been irregular at his place. Since they were both clearers, and Agil was one of Seiya and Kirito's few friends, Asuna was clearly well acquainted with him. It's Asuna. What a coincidence you came today. A player was short on cash and was selling golden carp here in Algade, and I just happened to snatch it up. When Agil mentioned the name golden carp, Asuna's eyes lit up, and she exclaimed in surprise, golden carp? That S-rank ingredient, considered one of the 3 great delicacies, along with chowder rabbit and hexagonal honey. As a foodie, Asuna had maxed out her cooking skills to satisfy her cravings, and she had memorized every ingredient in Sao by heart. However, she had only heard of this dreamy ingredient, the golden carp, but she had never seen it. Agil, please, sell me that golden carp. Dream-level ingredients are hard to come by, so Asuna, a foodie, naturally didn't hesitate to grab it. Chapter 67, Asuna's Confession. I run a general store, and since I can't prepare rare S-rank ingredients like golden carp myself, I was planning to sell them. But the problem is, Kirito happened to be here this morning and also had his eye on this golden carp. He just didn't have enough money with him, so he said he'd come back tomorrow to get more. Upon hearing that Asuna wanted to buy the golden carp, Agil rubbed his bald head, a look of embarrassment on his face. If the order had come from a stranger, Agil wouldn't have minded giving Asuna a favor. But since both Kirito and Asuna were his friends, he was in a difficult position. Kirito's got his eye on this golden carp too? But I remember his cooking skill being the same as Seiya's, not quite there, right? No, I remember Sachi's cooking skill being quite high. They're married in game now, so naturally, Sachi will be the one to cook the golden carp. Whatever. Seeing this dream ingredient and not grabbing it would be the biggest disrespect to any foodie. Agil, whatever Kirito offered, I'll double it. After a brief hesitation, Asuna decisively chose food over her friend and immediately upped the ante. Asuna, you have to understand, a rare S-rank dream ingredient like the golden carp is different from ordinary ingredients, so the price I agreed to for Kirito is 200,000 copper cal. If you want to pay double, that's 400,000 copper cal. And Kirito, as players level up, cal becomes easier to obtain, making it less valuable than it was at the beginning of the game. But if the game's top-up system still existed, a few 100,000 copper cals would probably be worth around 100,000 yen. Spending 100,000 yen on an in-game ingredient is indeed an extreme extravagance, something even the most casual foodie wouldn't consider. While the flavors of food in Sao are perfectly recreated, such a large sum of money would likely be used by more players to equip themselves rather than satisfy their appetites. Triple it. I'll pay triple the price for this golden carp. That way you'll be fair to Kirito, right? After all, Agil, you're a businessman, right? Now it's the highest bidder, and it's still a long time before Kirito can scrape together enough money for the golden carp. Triple the price, that would be 600,000 copper cals. Even Agil's heart skipped a beat when he heard Asuna's offer. After a few seconds of hesitation, Agil readily accepted Asuna's proposal. There was no other way. As Asuna had said, even excluding the fact that Kirito and Asuna were his friends, he was also a businessman. That broke Kirito had to scrape together 200,000 core, probably even on credit, but Asuna was offering triple the price, and it was cash on delivery. Who the hell was she even hesitating to sell this to? In reality, asking Asuna to come up with 600,000 core all at once would be a challenge. But it didn't matter. Asuna wasn't rich enough, but everyone else was. Opening her inventory and looking at the 8-digit currency value in the shared inventory, Asuna swiped her finger and readily traded 600,000 core to Agil. After trading the golden carp to Asuna, Agil's face lit up with envy as he remarked, Sometimes I really envy the Seiya. The famous Shining is now like a housewife, coming home every day at a fixed time to cook for him. By the way, you two should be married in the game now, right? If those male players who admire Shining knew about this, Seiya would probably be torn into pieces. Hearing Angel's teasing, Asuna sneered, I think he's not the only one who'll be torn into pieces. Right, indeed. 6 months had passed since their last dungeon exploration with the Moonlit Black Cats. 2 months after that day, Kirito and Sachi finally confirmed their relationship and eventually married in the game. After confirming their relationship, Kirito spent all his savings to buy a house on the 50th floor of Aincrad, inviting friends like Seiya and Asuna to the party. This is also why Kirito, a high-level solo player, couldn't even afford to acquire S-rank ingredients. Upon learning that Kirito and Yuki were finally married, Seiya, who had been invited, was completely stunned. In his opinion, Asuna was far superior to Yuki in both appearance and personality. Yet, Kirito ultimately chose his first love, perhaps proving the saying, first love is the most beautiful, because Kirito chose to marry Yuki. Seiya, who had previously maintained a distance from Asuna, relaxed considerably. Furthermore, Seiya had always believed that Mitako's loss of his position as the main wife was partly due to his own reasons, and thus harbored a certain amount of guilt. It was for this reason that Seiya and Asuna's relationship began to strengthen. Until a month ago, while attacking the 50th floor boss, Asuna, due to a moment of carelessness, was pierced through by the boss, instantly depleting her HP. Feeling her own death approach, Asuna looked at Seiya before her and, wanting to leave no regrets, confessed her love to him. Just as Asuna's body was about to disintegrate into fragments, Seiya pulled out an item, Christmas's Legacy, and used it on the dying Asuna. The Christmas's Legacy is a rare item dropped by the holiday boss trader Nicholas, which appears in the Lost Forest on the 35th floor during the Christmas event. Its effect is to revive the deceased player within 10 seconds of death. Several powerful guilds, including the Holy Dragon Alliance, competed for this item, but Seiya ultimately secured it. Originally, Kirito was supposed to claim the item, but now that the Moonlit Black Cat survived the tragedy and Sachi survived, Kirito's obsession with the item has faded. As for Seiya, he originally thought that the resurrection item would sell for a lot of money, so he joined in the scramble, but he never thought that he would actually use it one day. Chapter 68 Seiya and Asuna are now married. Asuna, initially aware of her impending death and unwilling to leave any regrets, chose to confess her feelings. When her resurrection item brought her back to consciousness and she found herself in Seiya's arms, her face flushed red as she recalled what she had just said. Asuna, what did you just say? Seeing Seiya's surprised face, the already shy Asuna suddenly said, I don't know why that idiot always thought I liked Kirito. I've been trying so hard to get close to you, but someone just kept playing dumb. The 50th floor boss was ultimately defeated through everyone's concerted efforts. And because of this incident, the relationship between Seiya and Asuna was completely shattered. Although it wasn't publicly announced, their inventory was now fully shared, a feature reserved for couples in the game. Asuna now lived directly in the Wenrin Chamber of Commerce's shop, buying ingredients and cooking at home every evening. After obtaining the golden carp from Agile, Asuna had no desire to continue shopping. She could even imagine Seiya's expression upon consuming this dreamy ingredient, and a smile of happiness crept onto her face. However, what Asuna didn't notice was that just as she left Agile's general store, a man with a gloomy face appeared from the corner nearby. Thinking of Asuna's previous happy expression and the fact that they were already married in the game, the man gritted his teeth. If Seiya were there, he would undoubtedly recognize him as Cladder, the man from the Blood Knights who held special feelings for Asuna. Originally, this Cladder was supposed to cause trouble for Kirito, but now Kirito and Sachi are together. Asuna's current crush is Seiya, which makes him the target of his attention. On the other hand, after returning to the Wenrin Chamber of Commerce from Agile's grocery store, Asuna changed directly into home clothes and entered wife mode. In SAO, the food, apart from providing satiety, rarely increases stats. But when it comes to cooking, Asuna has always been very passionate, because according to her, only when she enjoys delicious food can she feel alive. Because it was already evening, Mei and her grandson had already gone home after get-off work. Asuna had just returned home when she saw Seiya lying on the sofa like a social waste. Asuna, you're back much later than usual today. Hurry and get me something to eat. I'm starving. Looking at her boyfriend, sprawled out like a useless piece of shit, Asuna showed no sign of impatience. Instead, she smiled, coaxing him like a child. Right away, right away. There's a surprise for dinner tonight. I snatched the dream ingredient Kirito-kun had his eye on from Agile, and today I'll show you my true cooking skills. Seiya, curious as he was instantly impressed when he saw her proudly pull out the golden carp from her inventory and prepare to cook it. Seiya recognized it immediately. It wasn't just Asuna and Kirito, Seiya was also a foodie. After all, he'd been trapped in this death game for almost 2 years, and his only hope now was his appetite. He'd already made enough money with Keilu, and even if he returned to the real world, he'd be able to make a killing from those contracts. As for sexual desire, it's not entirely absent, but in Sao, even with consent, there aren't many actions that can be taken, and even in full stealth, it's impossible to fully reproduce every aspect. With Asuna's maxed out cooking skills, Seiya and Asuna devoured a large pot of fish soup. Asuna's previous excuse of not liking fish was rendered a joke by this golden fish soup. After enjoying the dream-inspired dish, Seiya took a photo and sent it to Kirito, who was diligently farming monsters to collect money. Seiya, golden carp is truly one of the 3 dream-inspired ingredients. The broth is incredibly fresh and fragrant, and the fish is melt in your mouth delicious. It's a blessing to be able to enjoy such a delicacy. Kirito, golden carp? Did you get one too? Wait, Seiya, your golden carp, is that? Seiya, Asuna bought it from Agile. I heard some poor idiot wanted to buy it on credit, so Asuna bought it back for 3 times the price. You know, we're all broke now, so we have to treat ourselves to something nice once in a while. Hiccup, Kirito, you damned couple, you're really going too far. That Agile guy, he's so greedy, how shameless. Asuna leaned her head on Seiya's shoulder, looking at the chat logs between Seiya and Kirito, and couldn't help but laugh. Are you really Kirito-kun's childhood friend? I feel like you never miss a chance to tease him. The relationship between Seiya and Kirito had always been something Asuna and Yuki had never understood. Seiya and Kirito undoubtedly considered each other their best friend, but often, these 2 guys would never miss any opportunity to embarrass each other. It wasn't just Seiya who acted like this. Sachi had secretly complained to Asuna many times about Kirito being like this too. They were like children who hadn't grown up. As the saying goes, I'm afraid of my brother suffering, and I'm also afraid of my brother driving a Land Rover. But if I were the one driving the Land Rover, I'd have to let my brother know. Asuna simply shook her head and smiled bitterly at Seiya's words, because she had never heard of Seiya's saying. Seiya, there's actually one more thing I want to tell you. Heathcliff, our guild leader, has again asked me to invite you into our guild. The boss room for Aincrad's 75th floor was finally discovered in the labyrinth a few days ago. According to Aincrad's floor rules, the bosses on every 25th floor of the floating tower are exceptionally powerful. Based on the previous bosses on the 50th floor, the guild leader believes that this 75th floor raid will be a tough one. Therefore, to better command and prepare for this raid, the guild leader hopes you will join our Blood Alliance Knights, while floor boss raids gather all players in a raid group, and everyone claims to be fighting for the survivors. If that's the case, why are there guild divisions? Floor bosses are dangerous, but the items and experience they drop are the fastest way for players to grow stronger. Defeating a floor boss by another guild is a completely different matter than defeating one's own, which is why major guilds are seeking out high-level solo players. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69, Seiya accepts the duel. Many guilds that formed clearing groups previously had an unwritten rule: if a guild defeated a floor boss, it would receive priority development rights for the next floor and the right to establish its guild headquarters there. While this rule might seem unfair to the average player, ordinary players naturally had to make some sacrifices while enjoying the benefits of being carried. Furthermore, such a rule could further energize clearing groups. After all, who would rush to the front lines without some benefit? After all, Sao is now a death game. A single mistake could result in death. For a solo player like Seiya, with his considerable strength and reputation, the Blood Knights weren't the only guilds courting his arrival. The previously second-placed Holy Dragon United Guild, as well as Klein's Wind, Forest, and Fire Mountain, had invited him multiple times, but he declined every one. Of course, Seiya was well aware that if guilds like the Holy Dragon Alliance were simply trying to bolster their own guild's strength by courting him, then Heathcliff, the leader of the Blood Knights, had a more intriguing purpose in repeatedly courting him. Others might not know this, but Seiya knew full well that Heathcliff, the leader of the Blood Knights, was actually Kaiba Akihiko. Other guilds worried about a lack of strength, but Kaiba Akihiko, with his GM account and his free use of cheats, was also worried about a shortage of strength. Heathcliff also said he's eager to see your unique skills and wants a fair duel with you. If you win, he'll agree to any terms, but if you lose, you'll have to join the Blood Knights. Hearing Asuna's words, Seiya understood. Was Heathcliff's invitation to the Blood Knights fake? Was his real intention to test his abilities? After all, Kaiba Akihiko was at least aware of Kirito's unique skill, the dual swordsmanship, but Kaiba Akihiko likely knew nothing about his own frivolous unique skill, the Shikigami sword. As the game GM, Kaiba Akihiko, under the alias Heathcliff, joined the players partly to experience the joy of playing the game himself, and partly to better observe them. In fact, as early as the 50th floor, Seiya considered exposing Kaiba Akihiko's true identity and bringing the death game to a premature end. However, after much hesitation, he ultimately chose not to do so. The reason was simple: Seiya was not the child of the world, lacking the aura. Who knew if his exposure would inspire admiration or outrage? If it was the former, it would be fine, at least he would have the same chance as Kirito, a fair duel. But if it was the latter, no matter how powerful Seiya was, he would be powerless against Kaiba Akihiko. Yes, Seiya had cheats, but in the world of SAO, Kaiba Akihiko was the cheat itself. As long as his GM's immortality remains, his health bar will never drop below 50%. This is a system issue, not a matter of skill. Even Seiya, no matter how powerful he is, can't compete with a GM who can modify the game's software, right? However, as a time traveler, Seiya is well aware that while Kaiba Akihiko is ruthless, he's also a man of his word. If he truly defeats him in a fair duel, could he leverage his offer to win this death game prematurely? Possessing Cullywave's magical skill, damage nullification, Seiya is fearless. After a brief hesitation, Seiya looked at Asuna beside him and said, "Tell Heathcliff I've accepted his bet." Even before the 75th floor boss strategy meeting had begun, word spread throughout SAO that Heathcliff, leader of the Blood Knights, and the Saint were about to engage in a fair duel. Both Heathcliff and Seiya were undoubtedly prominent figures in SAO. Heathcliff, needless to say, has always been hailed as the strongest player in SAO. To this day, numerous players, not just monsters, have challenged him. However, with his unique skill, Holy Sword, these renowned players can't even manage to push Heathcliff's HP down to the yellow zone, let alone defeat him. As for the Saint, Seiya, while his record isn't as impressive as Heathcliff's, SAO players know that Seiya is also one of the top players in SAO, and one of only 3 players in the entire region to possess a unique skill. Indeed, the exposure of Seiya's Shikigami sword was deliberate. Kirito, knowing that Seiya and Heathcliff also possessed unique skills and knowing he wasn't special, didn't hide the existence of his dual sword style. Heathcliff's strength was formidable, but Seiya, one of only 3 players to possess a unique skill, was no less formidable. So, when word spread that Heathcliff and Seiya were preparing to duel, the entire SAO world erupted in despair. The duel was scheduled for the Dragon's Lair, located on the western hillside north of the 55th floor. Because of the planned duel, the area was already crowded with high-level players early in the morning. "Lisbeth, I didn't expect you to join the others. Remember we nearly became food for the Ice Dragon last time." Upon hearing that Seiya was set to duel Heathcliff, Kirito and Sachi immediately arrived at the Dragon's Lair. Unexpectedly, they encountered familiar faces like Agile and Lisbeth. Lisbeth was a pink-haired girl who owned a forging shop on Linda Street, the main thoroughfare of the 48th floor. Seiya and Kirito were frequent customers of her shop because of her exceptional craftsmanship. Kirito had previously come to the Dragon's Lair with her to gather materials for his second one-handed sword, the Dark Repulsor. "Kirito-kun, long time no see. Is the Dark Repulsor still working well?" Lisbeth happily greeted Kirito, while simultaneously casting a defiant glance at Sachi, who stood beside him. Indeed, ever since their last encounter in Dragon's Lair, Lisbeth had been enamored with Kirito. And Sachi wasn't Asuna, they were still in a relationship. Lisbeth's affection for Kirito was simply due to the fact that Kirito and Sachi hadn't confirmed their relationship yet, so Lisbeth had always considered Sachi a rival. Even if Kirito and Sachi were lovers now, so what? This was just a game, and Lisbeth still had a good chance. Chapter 70 Your husband is missing, why are you looking for me, Kayaba Akihiko? Seeing the strange atmosphere between Lisbeth and Sachi, Kirito belatedly realized that he had stumbled into the legendary Shura field. Fortunately, just as he was getting restless, his best friend Klein appeared with his guild, Fuya and greeted them warmly. Kirito, you guys are here after all. What on earth is that Seiya thinking? Why would he suddenly want to duel the leader of the Knights of the Blood Alliance? Following Klein's appearance with the Fuya guilds like the Holy Dragon Alliance, the Army, and the Light of Hope, the guild formed by Kibo and Diable, soon followed. The clearers, who had previously been fighting on the front lines, were now almost all present. Even ordinary players showed up, filling the entire Dragon's Lair to the brim. Klein couldn't help but sigh, it's worthy of this top-notch showdown between the two most famous players in SAO. This is much more crowded than previous strategy meetings. I guess, except for those who can't explore the 55th floor, the rest of the players are probably here to join in the fun. Listening to Klein's words, Kirito looked at Heathcliff, who was already standing on an icicle, his arms folded, eyes closed, waiting. Then he also spoke, this is not surprising. After all, if you count the unique skills, Heathcliff and Seiya should be the strongest players in single combat in the entire SAO. This duel almost established their position as the strongest players in SAO. It's not surprising that they would be curious about this. Hearing Kirito's evaluation, Agile couldn't help but said jokingly, I remember there were 3 players who mastered unique skills. We haven't even fought them yet, Kirito, and you feel that you are not as good as them. Yes, Kirito, you also have unique skills, right? You and Seiya dueled in the past and the odds were evenly matched. So if you get serious, you shouldn't be much worse than the two of them, right? Klein's words made Asuna and the others present very curious. They only knew that Seiya and Kirito had a good relationship, but they didn't know that the two had dueled. The 50-50 odds we had before were entirely due to Seiya's lack of familiarity with the game controls. Now, 2 years have passed, and if I were to face him again, I wouldn't have any chance of winning. You don't know Seiya. That guy is a beast. From childhood to adulthood, his learning ability and talent have been nothing short of monstrous. Honestly, many people here probably think Heathcliff will win, but my instinct tells me that if Heathcliff doesn't have any special tricks up his sleeve, he'll probably be completely defeated. Klein and the others were stunned by Kirito's high praise of Seiya. But they also knew that Kirito's words were not groundless. After all, if there was anyone who knew Seiya best, it would undoubtedly be Kirito, having grown up with him. Even Asuna couldn't compare to that. By the way, it's almost time for the duel, right? Why hasn't Seiya arrived yet? Asuna, don't you know? Hearing Klein's question, Asuna felt a sudden pang of unease. She quickly opened the pop-up window and tried to send a message to Seiya. However, soon after her message was sent, she was reminded that the target area was unable to receive any messages. Oh no. Something must have happened with Seiya. He told me this morning he had to deal with something, but now I can't get in touch with him at all. Asuna's words caused concern among Kirito and the others present. After all, there were only a few areas in Aincrad where even information was completely blocked, and these were generally dangerous areas where transmission was prohibited. Seiya's scheduled duel with Heathcliff was approaching, yet he had suddenly and inexplicably disappeared. Everyone felt that something was amiss. Unable to contact Seiya, Asuna was now somewhat distraught. Although she felt it was unlikely, she immediately approached Heathcliff and asked, President Heathcliff, may I ask where Seiya is? Heathcliff, who had been standing aside with his eyes closed, pretending to be cool, was stunned by Asuna's question. No, where did your husband in the game go? You don't know, and yet you come to ask me? Where did Seiya go? How did Heathcliff know? He was just about to ask when he would arrive. After all, he'd been posing here for quite some time, and this was embarrassing for him as the Grams. Seiya suddenly disappeared, and now we can't contact him at all. And all this happened after he agreed to duel with you. Last night he hinted to me that you're not a simple character. I can even feel that he's prepared to risk his life for this duel. It's obviously just an ordinary PvP, isn't it? Why does Seiya have that mentality? Now it seems, Heathcliff was speechless after listening to Asuna's imaginative remarks. Even now, he was wondering if he was being scammed. He is Kayaba Akihiko. If he really wanted to kill Wenrin Seiya, would he need to resort to such tricks? Elsewhere, in the heart of the desert known as Hill of Memories, just outside the southern circle of Aincrad's 47th floor, at a place called Hill of Death, several figures stood etched in the windy sand. If Asuna and the others were there, they would have noticed that one of the individuals present was Seiya, the one they couldn't contact. Among the others confronting him, one, wearing Blood Knight armor, was none other than Clatter, the man who had followed Asuna the previous day. The individuals behind Clatter were dressed in black robes, each with a coffin tattooed on the back of their hands. Seiya had originally intended to proceed to the dragon's nest on the 55th floor as agreed. However, as soon as he left the Wenrin Chamber of Commerce, Clatter, wearing Blood Knight armor, informed him of the change in location and led him there, posing as a friend of Asuna's. Since the opponent was a Blood Knight, if Seiya were an ordinary person, he would likely have believed their words and fallen for their trick. Unfortunately, he was a time traveler, and he had some impression of Kirito, a man who was trying to take advantage of young women. So he followed him to this outer realm. He was determined to kill him, and coincidentally, Seiya had the same idea. If he could win the duel with Heathcliff, perhaps everything would be over, and they would return to reality. Rather than leaving scum like Kirito as a threat, it would be better to eliminate him here. Chapter 71 Seiya, you guys are not enough to kill. To avoid worrying Asuna and the others, Seiya sent a message before leaving with Claddle, explaining that he had something important to attend to. After being taken to the Hill of Death, Claddle immediately signaled the hidden group to attack Seiya. Unfortunately, Seiya, having anticipated this, easily dodged it. Seeing that his sneak attack had failed, Claddle abandoned his pretense and immediately called out several of his laughing coffin allies. He then began to taunt Seiya and, in a highly insane way, expressed his love for Asuna. Tisk, as expected, there are lunatics like this in every world. A Yandir girl is quite cute, but I have to say, if it were an older man, it would be quite disgusting. Looking at Claddle before him, Seiya immediately thought of the crazy fan who had assassinated Hoshino AI in the game I Push the World. Clearly, Claddle was the same type of fan. Because of his morbid love, he couldn't tolerate his ideal of perfection, committing even the slightest act he couldn't accept. If such a cradle were released into reality, Seiya had no doubt he would do something even more insane to Asuna. Hoshino AI's tragedy had already happened in another world, and Seiya naturally wouldn't allow it to happen again in this one. So when Cradle arrived, Seiya resolved to eliminate this threat once and for all for Asuna. Saint Wenrin Seiya, this prey is unexpectedly a prominent figure, quite a valuable hunting opportunity. I wonder if taking down such a powerful individual would make my heart race and my blood boil. Besides Cradle, the remaining black-robed figures surrounding Seiya were also utterly mad. Sao has many gaming guilds, most of which are established with the goal of completely conquering the game and returning to the real world. But there are also a few lunatics who delight in killing people in the game. Because this world lacks laws and enforcers, they rely on their superior levels and strength to remain at large. Among these outlaws who delight in killing, the most notorious is the Laughing Coffin Guild. This guild's members are essentially all red-named players, and most of them are downright lunatics. While others struggle to survive in the game, they revel in the thrill of slaughter. Only 4 of you? Fewer than I expected. I was thinking of cleaning up some more trash before returning to the real world, but now I'll have to make do and kill just 4 of you. Upon hearing Seiya's words, Claddle and the 3 Laughing Coffin helpers he had summoned burst into laughter. Before attacking Seiya, they had expected him to be terrified, surprised, and uneasy, but they had never imagined he would brag so much even when facing imminent death. True, the Saint title was indeed resounding, and even among the clearing group, he was one of the best players. But in terms of level, the 4 of them, including Claddle, were no less capable than Seiya. Although Crawldale was a pervert, anyone who could join the first guild, the Blood Knights, naturally couldn't be weak. The 3 members of Laughing Coffin Present were also high-ranking officials in the guild. With 4 against 1, even though the initial sneak attack failed, Seiya was lucky, but the advantage was still mine. Seiya actually threatened to kill all 4 of them. What the hell was that if not bragging? I'd like you to call more people over, preferably even Poe, the boss of Laughing Coffin. But unfortunately, the burial site you've chosen seems to have even blocked access to messages. Because the strategy is faster than the original storyline, Laughing Coffin hasn't been annihilated by the combined forces of the guilds yet. Damn it. I can't stand it. This is the first time I've seen such a pretentious guy. Let me see if you're as awesome as you say you are." Perhaps unable to tolerate Seiya's arrogance, one of the Laughing Coffin members pulled out two ice cone-like weapons and flashed in front of Seiya, stabbing the spiked weapon directly at Seiya's face. Ding! Seeing that the spiked weapon in his hand was about to pierce Seiya's eyes, directly hitting his vitals, and Seiya still stood there unmoved, a trace of disdain suddenly appeared on the face of the Laughing Coffin member. Just as he thought Seiya was a facade of weakness, the spiked weapon in his hand was within striking distance of Seiya's eyes when a dragon-like creature suddenly appeared around him. Shikigami Summon, Azure Dragon, Kanjin Dragon, with a resounding dragon roar, an oriental dragon covered in golden scales spiraled upwards, wrapping itself around Seiya. The Laughing Coffin player's spiked weapon, previously thrust, now collided directly with a Kanjin dragon's golden scales. The golden scales gleamed metallically in the sunlight, and the blow, previously thought a sure kill, now struck the bowl-sized dragon scales, sending only a few sparks flying, unable to even penetrate their defenses. The immense recoil, leaving his hands numb, Laughing Coffin player A looked up at the majestic dragon head and exclaimed in shock, "What the hell is this?" But before he could finish his words, a strong sense of danger washed over him. Before he could react, a dragon's tail, like a palm leaf fan, swept directly towards him. The immense force of the impact made the Laughing Coffin killer feel as if he had been hit by a truck. Not only was he sent flying over 10 meters away, but his health bar instantly plummeted to below normal levels. Damn! Is this the Saint's unique skill? One of those so-called Shikigami creatures? But according to previous intelligence, wasn't the Saint Shikigami a flaming tiger? And its level and strength were only comparable to an elite monster of his level. While Ken's defense wasn't high, a single blow reduced him to a bloody pulp at the same level. This clearly wasn't elite level, since they were planning to attack Seiya. Claddle and Laughing Coffin had undoubtedly studied him. According to their intelligence, Seiya's unique skill, summoning a tiger with a flaming tail, was only roughly at the level of an elite monster. There are also a few players with a profession of beast tamer in SAO. Although there are very few players who can tame monsters, Seiya is not an exception. Chapter 72, Are the main bodies of Shikigami very weak? Despite knowing that Seiya's unique skill was to command an elite monster-level flaming tiger, Claddle and his companions still felt confident of victory in a 4-on-1 situation. However, seeing Seiya now swirling with a golden dragon, Claddle and his companions frowned again. Clearly, the intelligence error had made the situation, which had previously threatened the dragon, seem more uncertain. HMPH, it's just a transformation from a tiger to a dragon. Although his unique skill differs slightly from what we previously understood, this golden dragon, as you just saw, doesn't have the power to instantly kill us. Monsters don't have high AI levels, so if we're careful, it won't be a big deal. You, Laughing Coffin, are a feared organization in SAO, and you even took a large deposit from me this time. You're not going to back down now, are you? Looking at the slightly uneasy expressions on the faces of the Laughing Coffin members, Claddle frankly added fuel to the fire. He had spent all his money to kill Seiya. If he failed, then Kirito would be doomed. Laughing Coffin was a reviled guild, a guild that everyone hated. Even barefoot people were not afraid of shoes, but Kirito was not like that. He was a member of the Knights of the Blood Alliance and a well-known player in the Clearers group. If this assassination attempt failed, the Laughing Coffin members could just walk away, but Kirito would be helpless. If this happened here leaked, not only would his reputation be ruined, but he would also face the constant pursuit of Seiya. Even more unacceptable was the possibility that Asuna would hate him and even want to kill him. This was absolutely unacceptable to Kirito. We, the Laughing Coffins, don't need your instruction on how to do things. Since we've accepted the commission, we'll naturally take him down. Ken, Apple, you two will hold down the golden dragon he summons. Claddle and I will dispatch the Saint as quickly as possible. Tamers often share a significant weakness. Their own strength is often inferior to the powerful monsters they command. Even Seiya's unique abilities allow his summoned Shikigami monsters to rival the power of ordinary bosses. Having two of them to hold down the golden dragon should be more than enough. As for me, the strongest of the three, plus Claddle, how could the two of them defeat a tamer without a commanded monster? After analyzing the situation, Shadow, the strongest of the Laughing Coffin trio, curled his lips slightly beneath his cloak, revealing a cruel smile. Don't waste time. Everyone, go all in. He's a top player in SAO, after all. Who knows if he might have other hidden tricks. Upon hearing Shadow's command, his companions, Ken and Apple, no longer hesitated, immediately luring away the Kanjin dragon summoned by Seiya. As for Clatter, he also drew his one-handed sword and, following Shadow's lead, charged at Seiya from both sides. Raging strike. Seeing Seiya's confident and sunny face, Clatter was inexplicably reminded of the image of his goddess in his embrace, and so he immediately charged at Seiya with fury. The raging strike was considered a highly advanced skill in SAO. Clatter's longsword, enveloped in a burst of blue light, shot like a ray of light, hurtling towards Seiya's face. However, Seiya merely tilted his head slightly, the wind from the sword whistling past his ears as he easily dodged the blow. After dodging Kratiel's attack with a flick of his head, Seiya took advantage of the moment his opponent was still frozen from releasing a skill to tighten his grip on the hilt of the sword at his waist and swung it with one blow. A crescent-shaped blue light exploded through the air, and the next second, Kratiel saw his hand, which had been holding the sword just a moment before, now detached from his body and flew past him. Although SAO is a full stealth game, its pain sensor is self-adjusting, and most players keep it set to its lowest setting. After all, the sensation of being torn apart by a monster, if perfectly recreated, would be too excruciating. Kratiel's pain sensor wasn't activated, so even though his arm was severed, he felt no pain. But the absence of pain didn't mean he wasn't hurt. As Seiya severed his arm, his HP rapidly decreased, and Kratiel's previously slightly arrogant expression gradually gave way to fear. Just as Seiya was stunned, realizing the opponent's health bar was thicker than he'd imagined, and that he hadn't managed to finish off Kratiel with a single strike, he was about to deliver another blow when the shadow of the laughing coffin suddenly appeared behind him. As it appeared, it also wielded a poison dagger, stabbing it directly at his temple. The human brain is inherently a vital point. While Seiya's physical prowess, thanks to the shared power of so many worlds, was far superior to that of ordinary humans, this was a game world, where physical attributes were determined solely by numerical values. No, even in reality, with his current physical abilities, he couldn't survive a single blow to the head, let alone one laced with poison. The sudden attack forced Seiya to temporarily forego his finishing blow to Kratiel, instead employing a bridge technique to dodge the shadow's attack. As he dove, Seiya braced himself on the ground with his hands, his feet soaring into the air, and directly kicked the shadow's chin, which had missed its target. This powerful upward kick sent the stunned phantom flying several meters into the air. In the real world, Seiya was certain that this single kick would have been enough to kill him several times over. Having shared the power of both the Tokyo Raven's world and the Jujutsu Kaisen world, Seiya's physical prowess was, strictly speaking, superhuman. A normal human's jaw would have been shattered by that kick. But again, this was SAO. While physical damage wasn't entirely unavoidable, it was far less than that inflicted by swords. While Phantom's sudden rise several meters into the air might have seemed impressive, the damage it inflicted was quite limited. Of course, in the later underworld, the situation was completely different. After all, stealth technology in the underworld 2 years later was far more advanced than it had been in SAO, with even the player's physical prowess and combat skills perfectly replicated in the game. The shadow that was kicked away by Seiya looked at his decreasing HP and Seiya, who was about to chase him with a sword. He no longer hesitated and directly took out his trump card. His figure slowly faded into the air and disappeared. Chapter 73, The Decisive Saint. SAO. Originally, after sending the shadow flying with a kick, Seiya had intended to kill it as it fell. But when he saw the shadow suddenly vanish in midair, Seiya was stunned. Teleportation was impossible. The Hill of Death area completely blocked teleportation abilities and skills. Excluding teleportation skills and items, the only remaining option was invisibility. Damn it. Kirito, that useless loser with all the levels but no skills, was almost killed instantly. And who the hell gathered this information? Aren't most players who use monsters strong? Almost killing Kirito with his swordsmanship, and with such ridiculous reflexes and physical abilities, how could he be considered weak? Honestly, even though the fight was brief, the shadow was already feeling discouraged. They, the laughing coffins, were indeed bloodthirsty, but enjoying battle and wantonly committing suicide were two completely different things. Previously, they were confident they could defeat Seiya, believing that Seiya, a character similar to Tamer, wouldn't be particularly strong. However, Shadow had already seen from their brief encounter that Seiya himself was terrifyingly powerful. Furthermore, that guy, Kirito, was a complete loser, nearly getting killed in a single encounter. He couldn't even be considered a fighting force. Furthermore, the difference between Kirito and himself was minimal. Death Hell certainly couldn't teleport, but he still had invisibility. He could simply use it to escape to a safe area and then use the teleport crystal to escape. As for that loser, Kirito had brought it upon himself. He had already saved him once, so he'd done his best. As for Ken and Apple, Shadow couldn't do anything about them. After all, his invisibility only worked on them. These two buddies were just unlucky. But if Shadow could escape this time, he would seek revenge on Po, the leader of the Laughing Coffin. Their leader, Po, was most interested in hunting powerful warriors. The next time the Laughing Coffins came out in full force, were they still worried about not being able to get their revenge? After carefully analyzing the pros and cons, Shadow decided not to linger. After all, his invisibility was limited in time. He had to get out of Seiya's sight as quickly as possible while still invisible. Shikigami summon, White Tiger, Lu Jinggao. Just as Shadow was about to flee, Seiya, not far away, tapped his hand in the air, and a constellation pattern materialized before him. Howl, a howl, like a dog or a wolf, emanated from the air. The next second, before Shadow's stunned gaze, a massive black dog, resembling a large husky, slowly emerged from behind Seiya. The enormous black dog, after descending, twitched its nose, then quickly fixed its fierce gaze on him, its teeth bared. Even in his cloaked state, Shadow was stunned upon seeing Lu Jinggao. He had never dreamed that Seiya's unique skill, the Shikigami sword, was so powerful that he could command two such powerful monsters simultaneously. The golden dragon was one thing, but Shadow sensed that this suddenly appearing giant black dog was equally formidable. The moment it set its sights on him, Shadow felt a sense of utter inescapability. The golden dragon, the black dog, and the flame-wrapped tiger mentioned in the intelligence report. Besides these three, it was unknown whether the sage had any other monsters under his command. Furthermore, everyone had always assumed that Seiya's unique skill, similar to beast tamers, could only summon one monster to battle, but now he had summoned two simultaneously. No, even two might not be his limit. Thinking back to his earlier comment about their small number of people, Shadow felt a chill run down his spine. The opponent wasn't arrogant, but rather possessed true strength. This boss-like monster could actually command multiple of them simultaneously. The true power of the sage far exceeded everyone's imagination. After being targeted by Lu Jinggao, Yaoang attempted to resist or flee, but as the saying goes, two legs can't outrun four. With his invisibility ineffective, Yaoang was quickly overwhelmed by Lu Jinggao, though he attempted to attack with his poisonous dagger. But his stab only earned a roar of pain from Lu Jinggao, whose massive maw ripped off Yaoang's entire head. After dispatching Yaoang, Lu Jinggao, at Seiya's signal, charged back towards Kang Jinlong's side of the battlefield. The remaining two members of Laughing Coffin, facing Kang Jinlong with 2 against 1, were already in a precarious situation. Seeing Yaoang, the strongest of the three, instantly slain by the giant dog, who now ran towards them, their hearts sank. Hearing the distant howls of the two Laughing Coffin members, Claddle, still frantically displaying his recovery potion, began to show fear as Seiya approached him. "You can't kill me. I'm not a red-named player like the Laughing Coffins. If you attack me, you'll become a red-named player too. And I'm a member of the Blood Knights. If you attack me, our leader and our guild won't let you go." Seiya continued to approach, forcing Claddle, with one arm already broken, to retreat. As Seiya's one-handed sword healed, Claddle's other arm soared into the air once more. Looking at the HP he'd finally recovered with the recovery potion, Claddle felt a genuine fear of death. Seeing Seiya, unmoved by his threats, he could only begin to subside, saying, "Please let me go. I was just possessed by a demon. I understand. I won't attack Asuna again. In Sao, if you kill someone, you'll die in real life too. You don't want to become a murderer at such a young age, do you? If you let me go, I'll give you all my tools and disappear from your sight forever." Looking at Claddle, now armless but kneeling and kowtowed, Seiya remained calm and spoke slowly. "For a piece of trash like you, dying here is the best outcome. As for being a murderer, I really don't care. It's actually a good thing you chose a good place. There's no one here now, and I can't even send a message. Even if I kill you all, who would know? Chapter 74, Tit for Tat, Kayaba Akihiko exposed. After leaving Death Hill, Seiya checked the time and realized he was already late. But it wasn't really his fault, it was simply that Claddle and the others had chosen their location well. Death Hill was quite large, and after defeating Claddle and the others, Seiya had to first leave the forbidden teleportation zone and teleport to the 55th floor. Then, from the 55th floor's main city, he had to rush to the dragon's lair, wasting considerable time. Ultimately, Seiya undoubtedly killed Claddle. Even in his final moments, Claddle couldn't understand how a high school boy like Seiya could be so ruthless. Honestly, before today, Claddle and Seiya probably had no personal grudges against each other, and this was only their first meeting. Although, when he begged for mercy, Claddle did envision revenge in the future, even if it meant waiting in the real world. But that was just his inner thoughts. Why did the other party seem to know him so well, so determined to eliminate him even though it was their first meeting? There was no doubt that Claddle died with the grievances, and even until his death, he wondered if he had given himself away somewhere. Back at the dragon's lair, Heathcliff, who had been suspected, was hesitating whether to use his administrator privileges to locate Seiya when Seiya finally arrived. Sorry, I'm late because something came up. But I didn't expect so many people to come here. Did you all sense that something big was going to happen today and come to join in the fun? Seeing Seiya appear, Asuna and Kirito, who had been worried about him, were undoubtedly relieved. However, seeing Seiya's continued careless attitude, Asuna couldn't help but become furious and delivered a blow to his head. Then, he pulled Seiya over to Heathcliff and said, "President Heathcliff, I'm truly sorry. I shouldn't have just assumed and doubted you. It's all Seiya's fault for suddenly having something to do without informing us, leaving everyone worried and keeping you waiting." Seiya hadn't expected Claddle to suddenly want to mess with him. But it was also true that he was late and completely out of touch, causing Asuna, Kirito, and the others to worry. So, even as Asuna dragged him around to apologize, Seiya didn't seem impatient. "President Heathcliff, I'm truly sorry for keeping you waiting. I happen to have a fairly rare item here, so I'll give it to you as an apology." As Seiya spoke, he pressed an item into Heathcliff's hands without hesitation, his attitude unbelievably enthusiastic. At first, Heathcliff wanted to refuse. After all, as the game GM of the SAO world, calling him a god might be a bit of an exaggeration, but asking for rare items or equipment was no problem for him. Seiya enthusiastically thrust the so-called rare item into his hands, and Heathcliff instinctively glanced over. But when he realized the item Seiya had thrust into his hands was a familiar mirror, gleaming with light, Heathcliff knew he'd been tricked. Heathcliff naturally recognized the rare item Seiya had mentioned, having created it himself, the Mirror of Truth. Its function was simple, it allowed characters to reveal their true selves. It was a one-time item given to SAO players at the time of the game's closure, allowing them to reveal their true selves. It was a one-time item, and aside from being given by Seiya himself, there was no other way to obtain it in the game. Logically, after he shut down the game, the Mirrors of Truth should have been delivered to every player and activated. Kayaba Akihiko had never dreamed that Seiya would possess such a thing, let alone gift it to him. "When Seiya, when did you discover me?" The moment she looked at the Mirror of Truth, it had already been activated. Even a genius like Kayaba Akihiko couldn't create a new program in such a short time. Looking at Heathcliff, completely enveloped in white light, Asuna and the crowd watching were bewildered. They had no idea what item Seiya had given Heathcliff, nor why he had suddenly spoken so abruptly. "Heathcliff, President, your question is a bit baffling. What discovery or non-discovery? The item I gave you was a gift from Kayaba Akihiko to all players during the open beta. Everyone else's items disappeared upon activation, leaving mine behind. In terms of effectiveness, my Mirror of Truth might be a bit useless, but in terms of rarity, it's probably the only one of its kind in all of SAO right now." Right. Upon hearing Seiya's words, Kayaba Akihiko was stunned. Could it be that he had just guessed wrong, and that Seiya's gift of the Mirror of Truth was truly a fluke? However, just as this thought crossed Kayaba Akihiko's mind, he noticed the smile on Seiya's face, a smile that was harder to suppress than an AK. He instantly realized he'd been tricked again. The white light gradually dissipated, and Heathcliff, no, it should be said that Kayaba Akihiko's figure slowly emerged into view. Although Kayaba Akihiko had appeared before everyone as the God of Death on the first day of the public beta, as SAO's main developer, Many players had seen his true appearance on related game forums. Because of this, when Kaiba Akihiko, now revealing his true appearance, appeared before everyone, he was immediately recognized by many players and called out by name. Kaiba Akihiko. Heathcliff, the leader of the Knights of the Blood Alliance, is actually Kaiba Akihiko. Yes, I've seen his face on the news before. There's no way I'm mistaken. This bastard trapped us in the game and pretended to be a player and became its leader. Is he playing us like monkeys? Without a doubt, the moment Kaiba Akihiko appeared, all the players present instantly erupted in excitement, like water dropped into a frying pan. For these players trapped in the game, Kaiba Akihiko was undoubtedly their most hated enemy of the past 2 years. With their enemy now right before their eyes, it was only natural that they would be so enraged. Chapter 75. Who are you? Everyone, attack together. If we take down Kaiba Akihiko, we might even be able to return to the real world. That's right, this guy is the culprit who trapped us all in the game for 2 years. There's no need to argue with him, just attack him together. Previously, Heathcliff, as the leader of the Knights of the Blood and a dedicated frontline member of the Clearers, enjoyed considerable prestige and popularity among players. But with Kaiba Akihiko's true identity revealed, he instantly became a pariah. Yet, even facing the numerous high-level SAO players present, Kaiba Akihiko, despite his exposed identity, remained unfazed. Instead, he looked at Seiya with a puzzled look and continued to ask the same question: when did you start to doubt me? Although the Mirror of Truth can indeed reveal the true appearance in the game, it must be triggered by the user's contact. Even if you suspect that Kaiba Akihiko will infiltrate the players, it should be impossible to let every player touch the Mirror of Truth to try it out. Kaiba Akihiko was very puzzled. His disguise should have been quite perfect, but judging from the behavior of Seiya just now when he stuffed the mirror into his hand, the other party seemed to have been convinced that he was Kaiba Akihiko a long time ago. I can't say I'm convinced. At first, I was merely skeptical. After all, many of your actions were so different from the other players. As the main developer of SAO, you, Kaiba Akihiko, are more of a researcher than a so-called player. We've probably been on quite a few boss raids together, right? During each one, I could sense distinct emotions from the other players in the raid group: joy at success, sadness at losing a companion, surprise at the unknown, and fear of death. But there was one exception: you, Heathcliff, the leader of the Blood Knights. Powerful strength might give your confidence, but you're overconfident. I don't see a trace of fear of death in your eyes, nor a hint of surprise at the unexpected. It's as if everything is under control. Earlier, during the raid on the 50th floor boss, the raid group's toughest battle to date, you held the front lines for 10 minutes, and your HP never dropped below 50%. Is that because of a HP lock? But even though there are so many suspicious points about you, without definitive evidence, I've only ever been suspicious of you. After Seiya's words, Kaiba Akihiko let out a wry smile, then clapped his hands and said, because you're skeptical of me, you're using the Mirror of Truth I gave you during the public beta to test me, right? No wonder Asuna said earlier, you think I'm something special. It turns out you've been doubting me all along. Seiya wanted to say that what he just said was pure fabrication, that he was convinced it was Kaiba Akihiko simply because he was a time traveler. But even if he said that, it was clear no one would believe him. So, he could only brazenly say, the Mirror of Truth is useless to begin with. It's no harm using it to verify my hypothesis. As for why I have it, it's because when I entered the game in my original form, it wasn't triggered at all. Kaiba Akihiko himself hadn't anticipated that the difference between a player and a game designer would reveal him. If you think about it, it's true. Players play games primarily for emotional gain, while he, as the administrator, integrates himself more for data collection. What a shame. I was planning to play with you all the way to the 100th floor of Aincrad as Heathcliff, as I'm the final boss there. But now that my identity has been revealed, the game can't continue. So, let's meet again in the room on the 100th floor. Faced with the numerous clearing players surrounding him, Kaiba Akihiko remained unfazed. In this SAO world, he was invincible if he wanted to. He could easily eliminate everyone present, but that would be too boring and defeat his original purpose. Just as Kaiba Akihiko, his identity revealed, was about to return to the 100th floor to take on his own boss, Seiya suddenly called out to him as he was about to leave. You provoked me to duel, and now you're running away? If I flee without a fight, then I'll be the winner, right? Kaiba Akihiko, who had been preparing to leave, was stunned when he heard Seiya's words. Then, somewhat surprised, he said, "Now that you know my true identity, you still plan to duel with me." Honestly, Kayaba Akihiko was quite curious about Seiya's unique skills. He had later searched Sao's vast database and found no information about the Shikigami sword. This result surprised Kayaba Akihiko, but he was also delighted. His original dream was to make Sao world as real as the real world. What is a real world? It's one with infinite possibilities, not just limited to fixed data. In Seiya, Kayaba Akihiko saw something beyond the preconceived notion, and this was the main reason for his interest in him. He had originally intended to learn more about Seiya through a duel, but now that his true identity had been exposed, that plan was temporarily thwarted. He could only observe Seiya until he reached the 100th floor. Seiya had long worried that he was too unique and might be obliterated by Kayaba Akihiko, who, in the world of Sao, was akin to God. However, such concerns were completely unfounded. It would be more accurate to say that even if all players in Sao were dead, Kayaba Akihiko wouldn't let anything happen to Seiya. Seiya's uniqueness had created unknown possibilities within Sao's previously fixed data. Copying Seiya's data and then erasing it might be possible, but such an approach would undoubtedly be killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. Unlike fixed computer data, humans are constantly evolving. Seiya, as it stands now, has already brought possibilities beyond mere data to Sao. What about his future? If you wish to continue to fulfill our previous duel agreement, then I will naturally not refuse. But if you lose, I do not need you to join the Blood Knights this time. You only need to tell me who you are. Previously, I asked Seiya to join the Blood Knights just to make it easier to collect data on Seiya. Now that his identity has been exposed, there is naturally no need to do so. Another chapter. I think my writing has been a bit watery lately, damn it. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all, see you in the next video.